Welcome to the A Cast on Titan podcast. In this episode, we're going to finish up our triple header here and get through chapter 88 and finish the last bit we have to do so that we can make this the merriest fucking Christmas you ever had.
Woohoo!
Right. In this episode, part 3 here, we're going to be going over everything that happened in chapter 88, and then at the end of it, we're going to put all our questions together that we've gathered since chapter 86, and then do all the questions at the end of this podcast. So I've already filtered out all the repeat questions and all the stuff we've already talked about, and any of the stupid troll questions too. So everything we have left is just legit questions that you guys submitted that are going to be good for us to go through. So before we get started with impressions, I want to make the disclaimer once more that this is a manga spoilers podcast, which means that if you have not read chapter 88, that you should go read chapter 88 before listening to this and then come back, because otherwise you're going to get spoiled on the stuff that happened here. So with that out of the way, I think we're ready to do impressions and introductions for this chapter. Ryan's out for this episode, so we're just down
being a
three
fucking
of us.
loser.
He's pursuing his dreams. He's being a fighter. It's good for him. I'm proud of him. And
But he still sucks.
he'll be back next month. We'll be back for the January episode, hopefully.
Assuming it exists.
Assuming it exists. We'll fucking see. I don't know. That'll be fun to see moving forward. Go ahead, let's start our impressions here, going in our normal order.
Alright, my name is Scott, also ScottV23 from the subreddit, and I thought this was a really good podcast. Oh my gosh, it's a podcast.
I hope it's a good podcast!
There we go. Well, although I do think it's a good podcast, I also thought it was a good chapter. I really liked, and I say this every week, so this has become a meme at this point, but I really do like the progression. I like the fact that we got a lot of information about Kruger, about his plan, about how Grisha got his mission and what exactly he was going in to the walls for. And yeah, I just like all the information and backstory, so overall, good chapter.
More backstories. It's starting to get a little old, just a little.
Who are you?
Oh, fuck you. People know who I am. So, yeah. It's I mean, it's always good information, but it is getting a little old with the backstory. I want to see Armin's Titan form already, goddammit. But that level of whinging aside, it looks like this will probably be the last flashback chapter, so should be good. The chapter itself was good, aside from Crunchyroll fucking up the translation on the Attack Titan.
I think that actually was intentional, but I think we'll get to that later.
The Attack Titan? No.
Yeah, we'll get to that, though. His name is Darth Mewtwo. He's one of the moderators on the subreddit, and that's who he is, by the way. I am Stiller3 from the subreddit. I am one of the other moderators, and like Scotty, I'm kind of repeating, I don't know what you call it, like I'm on loop, because This was just another chapter to me. I didn't hate it and I didn't love it. And like I mentioned in a previous recording that I thought these the past few chapters had all been sort of, or they should be treated like they're part of a set. Like these 3 chapters should be thought of as a combined element. And most of what I got from this chapter was just putting a cap on the last bit of this. And we could see at the end of the chapter that we're, I think, ready to actually move forward in our current timeline and seeing what the reaction's going to be, like what the new plan's going to be, how we're, going to move forward from here. And I'm actually more interested in that now, because as we kind of alluded to in the last recording, some of the bits later on in this chapter were not great, and we'll get to that. So now that we've finished our introductions and impressions, we're actually ready to move into chapter 88 proper. This is the one. This was the good one to combine the questions with, because this chapter, as we were talking about before we started recording, is going to be a little bit quicker, just because there's not as much detail, and a lot of this chapter was more visual than it was.
Yeah, and with that, actually, I think I want to jump in and start with the front page, and how I just thought it was pretty funny. Number one, is this Kruger talking to Grisha in the boxes of, like, I need to tell you what the ocean is? Because that kind of confused me, because if that is the case, then how do the Marleys and Aldeans that are on the mainland, how do they not know what the ocean is? Because there's apparently no Titans, right, around the mainland. So then shouldn't they be able to freely roam and discover what's out there past the walls? Or
Well, we saw that Grisha and family were kind of confined to a certain area, and they weren't allowed to go certain places unless they had a badge.
You're right.
So I kind of assumed that number one, they were limiting the amount of areas that they could travel to, and number two, that they were probably, as indicated by that line of text from Kruger, that they're probably also limited in education. Like they were never taught what the ocean was, like because they never needed to know and they didn't want them to know. Sort of like how the military police suppressed the will of experimenting and creativity and that sort of thing within the walls that we knew, and that was to curb the enthusiasm for exploring and for adventuring and that kind of thing outside the territory that they want them to. So I kind of assume that's the same mindset the Mar are using on the Eldians within their Mar territory. I wish we had a name for the Mar territory, by the way, because I hate calling it that. I wish it had like a fucking name.
I'm just gonna call it the mainland. I feel like that's just simple enough.
I can't like it's. Is it an island? Is it off just the coast?
Is what an island?
Okay, well no, we do. It's off the coast of Africa. That's where it is. Okay, fine. I forgot where the location was for a second.
Right. And I like the parallel between, or it's not even a parallel, it's just like the theme of the ocean being a sign of freedom, with Armin and his desire to know what the ocean is and see it, and then here's Grisha having to have essentially the exact same explanation that Armin wants, through Kruger, and also how it's ironic because it's seen as if it's a sign of, or a symbol of hope and freedom, but it acts as a fourth wall towards the people at Paradis. So it's like, it's a barrier, but it's also a sign of freedom. So it's a weird,
So jumping ahead a little bit, I want to jump to a specific line that Kruger had. I think Mika brought this to my attention, that Kruger had said this. It was the, I'm just looking out into the world from a crack in a closet door. That line is amazing and unbelievable, because that line is essentially everything to this story. That's our perspective as a reader, that's their perspective as characters, and that's how the story has played out, is that crack in the door slowly opens and we slowly take in more information, and then once it's fully open, everything's changed and not what we thought it was,
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think that line is a perfect summary, actually, of pretty well the entire story up to this point, because it doesn't really matter which character you look at, all of them can share that in some way.
Oh yeah, it just goes to show, how knowledge is the ultimate power, because think about what the 101 Squad, what they could have done. 103rd Squad? I even forget what the number is.
104th.
Fourth?
Yeah.
Wow, I was pretty off. Well, think what the 104 could have done if in the very beginning, before they even fell into the trap of, the shifters, what they could have done with that knowledge beforehand. I mean, the entire story would have been completely different. Their tactics, what they did, what they didn't do. I mean, knowledge is and I think that's not just specifically towards Attack on Titan. That's with any story, really. It's knowing your opponent's motives, knowing what they're going after, how to counter it. That just makes all the difference. And that's why, we're going to see, I think, a more realistic set of events where it's not going to be so lopsided anymore, as the shifters should have won. Then we're going to be pissed when the heroes come out on top, or the heroes of this story. Now it's going to be like a more even-handed battle. So that's going to make it for more compelling combat going forward.
I agree with that, and I think it's interesting the point that you raised about how important information is in this story, because in a typical shonen anime or shonen manga, that's not really a point of focus, and that's not really treated with the kind of reverence that it should be treated with. In that our characters here use the information in a realistic and in a smarter way than in most manga or anime, where it's just a point A to point B, point of attack, you know what I mean? Whereas in this show, we're coming at it from different angles, and we're seeing, we're looking forward to consequences of actions. We're looking more at cause and effect than you normally would, I guess. And
Right.
like I said, it's important that they did that. I also think it's really cool that Isayama actually made that such a big part of the story, that we struggled for so long to get this information, and we speculated, and we theory crafted, and we tried so hard to try and understand what was happening. And that was, if you think about like our struggle with that, that's totally applicable to the characters and the struggle that they went through, and then that they're still going through, because our reactions to these last 3 chapters, I mean, they are obviously very different from the reactions of the characters in the story, but we're both feeling the kind of shock and the kind of, how not ready we were for this, like how blown away we are, and the realization of the history and how it's going to affect the story moving forward, and how it's going to affect their lives moving forward. And we saw that a little bit at the end of the chapter with like Mikasa, sort of being in denial, and contrast that to us, the
Not
readers.
Sort of. That was completely full on.
And then contrast that to us, the readers. We see it more as interesting, and we analyze the story aspect of it. But I like that. I like that he was able to create that parallel between the character and the reader as far as the value of information and the sort of reaction that we were going to have to this information. I thought that was well done.
Right. Something that I think could have been handled better, speaking of that, is when initially Grisha, pretty much snaps at Kruger and says, "Why didn't you turn to a Titan and kill off the soldiers before, you turned everyone else that was on the restorationists into Titans?"
And before they killed Gina specifically.
Exactly. And then Kruger falls down, because he's weakened, and literally the next page, after Kruger says, like, he laments about, "I also killed thousands of Aldians, and I, did horrible things, skinned people alive," the literal next page, Grisha says, "Anyway, show me." And it's like, wait, what? Like, he literally just gave that up, and just all that anger, all that frustration, it literally just ended once Kruger dropped. And I thought, even if that took him by surprise, it's as if, that anger was real, and did he just forget about it? I mean,
it wasn't a good transition, I think is what you mean. And that there should have been an extra page or 2 of Grisha sort of calming down and realizing that him getting angry isn't going to help anything, and he can't take it out on Kruger, and doing anything to Kruger is not going to help him, so he just needs to calm the fuck down. There should have been a transition to that to help your point, I think.
Right, and especially because not only is it, Kruger falling down, and that could, take your attention away if you're Grisha and then make you calm down initially. I understand that to some degree, but literally what Kruger says is, "I also killed thousands of Aldians." If anything, what he said not only wouldn't calm Grisha, it would only increase his frustration and anger towards Kruger. So he did the exact opposite of de-escalating the situation, yet that's exactly the outcome that had happened. And I feel like that was a rushed kind of way of handling the situation.
To be fair...
Well, I feel like at this point, Grisha would have realized what being a Marleyan officer would have had to mean, since all these people were being turned into Titans. I think he would have realized that he most likely did kill that many people. Or, well,
but Kruger explains that later in the chapter, which implies that he had to explain it. So, I mean, I just think that the explanation should have came before, like the part where Kruger says, "I had to gain their trust, so I had to commit these atrocities." That should have been put directly after Grisha said, "Why did you do this?" in order to be a response to that. Instead, we get the later in the chapter, which is almost out of place, and it doesn't explain. It would have explained if you put that there right after Grisha asked why Grisha was then calmed. So it's just the order of events and explanations that happened in this chapter. I feel like it could have been much better paced with a couple of changes like that.
No,
I read that line from Kruger as a bit of like a mental breakdown happening at this point. Like, oh god, I've killed so many people for nothing.
Yeah, but...
Scotty, I do agree with what you're saying, but I think, to be fair, we saw multiple times in this chapter Grisha go, that revenge really didn't do anything for me, and, I really don't think the whole fighting thing's not really for me. I don't know if I'm cut out for it. Hey, I'm not sure about all this goal and mission stuff you're entrusting me with. I'm not sure if I'm really up to this. We saw a lot of hesitation and almost back down from Grisha. So I think he's kind of all over the place. He's seesawing back and forth emotionally. He's not totally stable. So I could kind of understand why he's a little all over the place, but I do agree with you that the transition should have been handled a little more smoothly.
Yeah, Grisha, he just watched his wife get turned into a Titan, all of his friends get turned into Titans, had all his fingers chopped off, found the guy that killed his sister, got the guy who killed his sister killed, saw an officer who he thought was about to kill him turn into a Titan, defend him, kill all his soldiers, and then tell him, hey, I'm your secret ally. He's probably not mentally all there right now.
Yeah, a lot happened.
And he is in a lot of despair, too.
A lot just happened. Something that Ryan said, this is just a quick reference, but Ryan had mentioned the last episode that this conversation between Eren and actually it is Eren. That's not a misstatement. This conversation between Eren and Grisha is akin to a Metal Gear Solid cutscene where it's just a huge conversation that takes a long period of time and is essentially more or less a plot dump. And I appreciate that kind of parallel, even if it's not intentional, just because that feels appropriate for this situation, because you've got a big leader of one faction and a big leader of another quote-unquote faction coming together to discuss the future of the series, I guess, the future of the plot, and there's a lot going on underneath the surface in this conversation. So I appreciate the approach that Isayama took to having this conversation and sort of how the two are treating each other and interacting off of each other. To Scotty's point a minute ago, there are some bits that could have been transitioned a little, smoother, but I can't say that I didn't like the dialogue between the two and the conversation as a whole. I thought it was pretty well done overall.
Oh yeah, I'd agree. Overall in this series, I think, there have been a couple of points where it was exposition for exposition's sake, but typically, because you're going to need that in any given story, I think Isayama handles it rather well in Attack on Titan, and especially in this scene, as you just illustrated, Stiller, it's the same as, two leaders talking amongst each other about the future. And I think if you had to get this information out there, which he obviously did, this was an appropriate way to do so. So I also commend Isayama for doing it in such a delicate and just precise way.
Did you notice the amount of symbolism in this chapter? I think you had mentioned it at the beginning of the session here, but talking about the ocean and what the ocean represented. Yep. At the end of the chapter, we saw the Wings of Freedom, and they were talking about how the Attack Titan represented freedom and all that stuff. Grisha's fingers, and seeing Eren, Kruger, and the state that he's in as he's getting ready to pass the torch, there's a lot of symbolism going on in this chapter, and I think that's kind of not used as much at Attack on Titan, but this chapter in particular, I think, used it a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that panel with Mikasa behind the bars of the prison cell. I think that's a good example of it too, because she feels like she's trapped in a situation where she can't save Eren, and there's nothing she can do about it, so she might as well be in a cage, while he's dying slowly.
A Vogel and Käfig.
She's literally dying in front of her, and there's nothing she can do about it.
I still don't like that, by the way. The fact that they got reprimanded. I understand they broke the rules, but there's like 3 people total in the entire Survey Corps. Are they really going to punish these people?
Yeah, good point. They're basically throwing a third of their forces in jail.
It's totally inconsequential, and I kind of feel like he did it more for the scenery than anything else. Because
I think Levi did it for the fuck you factor.
it's really good scenery.
Probably.
I kind of feel like it's just good scenery, so that was a good reason to do it.
Good scenery, a jail cell with nothing to see. Yeah.
Well, we were just talking about symbolism and how that's being used here. That's an important storytelling mechanic. If you look deep and you find that shit. But it's also
I don't look deeper.
It's two birds with one stone, because we had also talked about this is Isayama also recognizing, not recognizing, but not ignoring small details and plot hole types of interactions. Like, this is a thing that should have happened.
Yeah, plot holes like the timeline with the 13 years and Grisha and all.
Well, we're getting to that because we're heaping a lot of praise on how this chapter was done early on before we get to all the bad shit. we're getting to that.
Shifter aids.
Yeah. Something else I just noticed that we didn't touch on was Kruger.
You're a fucking idiot. No, something else. Continue.
Kruger talking about how everything he did for the sake of his people, and how he committed all those atrocities and it was all for his people, for the Albions. But I like the parallel to the Shifters and the fight that we've known the Shifters have gone through up to this point, and how we've always thought about the possible redemption for the Shifter characters, the RBAZ, and the things that they've done, like the genocide at the beginning of the series. It's I think we mentioned it in the last recording, but I think it's kind of funny to look at Kruger and what he's talking about here, and then to look back at the Shifter kids and all the things that they've done, and just to see how far we've come, and thinking about all the times where we were like, man, how are they possibly gonna make these guys not total assholes? How are they possibly gonna pull this back? There's got to be some kind of like Jesus, some sort of Jesus action that they do that redeems them somehow, because it seems like such a huge...
They can't. The Jesus Titan is inside Eren.
It seemed like such a huge deficit in the balance between the two as far as the Shades of Grey goes. So I wanted to call attention to Kruger also being in that pile now. I think everyone's in that pile, but every time that detail comes up, I appreciate it because I like that storytelling element.
You could really call it a pile of deplorables.
And actually, this is kind of off topic. What I was actually just thinking regarding, and we're going to talk about this probably coming up, I guess we could talk about it now, the 13 years and how after you become a shifter, you have 13 years before you're dead. What if you as a shifter ingest another shifter, the time resets? And that could account for how some of these main characters are going to survive longer. They're going to continuously, well, not continuously, it's not going to be like a trend, but maybe at one point Eren's going to consume one of the other shifters, one of the other 6 that we haven't seen, and then that'll reset the timer. I think that could happen. We're
going to open up this if we talk about this, we're opening up this can of worms, because there's a lot of questions about this.
It's going to be opened inevitably.
Yeah, let's open it now, but what do you think about what I just said?
It still fails to account for Grisha, because he was in the walls for like 20 years, and 20, I'm pretty sure, is more than 13. So, the fuck, guys.
You don't know when he ate the coordinate, though. That could account for my theory.
Yeah, he ate the coordinate like right when the wall fell.
Okay, so, and how?
This is more of a question of timeline, I think, than eating, right? Because after this scene, do we assume that the next 13 years is when he went inside the walls, ate Frida, and then passed on the power to Eren, right?
Right, but it's not explicitly stated, how long after he got into the walls it was. Well, you said once the walls fell, but...
Well, Darth,
yeah, it was right when the wall fell.
Darth had mentioned a 20-year number. Where did you get that? Where did you get the number 20 from?
I forget. Someone put a timeline together on the subreddit, and it was basically 100% consistent until this chapter came out. Let me check and see if I can find it.
I'm always wary of fan theories.
Well,
it wasn't really a theory, though. They had a full-on never mind. They had a full-on evidence on everything and stuff.
I was just reading earlier, a couple of hours ago, somebody had said that the timeline actually matched up for it being 13 years until Grisha had actually gone and done the stuff and gave it to Eren, So I'm a little curious about how that timeline actually played out, because I don't fucking know. Don't ask me to do math on the number of years that this shit happened. I don't know. I'm not here to do it. I'm not here for analysis. What the fuck do you expect from me?
That's a good question. No, but I mean, I think even if it doesn't match up, it's just going to be...
that's where the number came from. Keith Shottis said that he met Grisha outside the walls 20 years ago.
So the timeline is a little off then, isn't it? By 7 years, right?
Yeah. And Grisha didn't eat the coordinate until literally the day the walls fell, because when he left Shiganshina in the first chapter, first episode, he went to go visit the Rice family. Then the walls were attacked, and then that night, Eren ate Grisha.
So, to Scotty's point, the question that we're asking is why Grisha survived up until that point that the walls fell, because he should have died 7 years earlier.
Exactly.
Is it possible that after this chapter we're going to see Kruger go, hey, maybe I want to ride this? No, that's not possible because he's in his 13th year. That's not possible.
Plus, Grisha has his fingers when Shottis finds him.
Which means they would have had to have grown. Well, I mean, they would have grown back at... Like, what happened in that... Why is there an extra 7-year period is the question.
Yeah.
What Scotty's saying is that because he ate Frida.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is...
Wouldn't that not work, though? Because that was...
When Shottis found Grisha, right, he had his fingers. Then the 20-year timer from Shottis finding Grisha started. So whether or not Kruger pushed the time back or not is irrelevant. Because it's still been 20 years since the point where Shottis found Grisha.
And at that point, because he had his fingers, that means that at that point he was a shifter.
Exactly.
Right. And even if he had eaten Frida at that time, like when the walls fell, that wouldn't have had any bearing.
That would have already been 7 years too late.
Right, that would have been after the fact.
7 years too late? Oh, right, because it happened 20... So it doesn't match up.
So there's a 7-year gap for some reason. I don't know why.
Plus, Keith is obviously not just 24 right now. He's quite a bit older than that, probably.
Yeah.
Or not Keith, Zeke. So his timeline's a bit wonky as well.
Well, I can excuse Zeke because we have no idea when Zeke actually got the serum. So that can easily be explained with, he got it 10 years
fair. They could have trained him for a few years and then given it to him.
So
Zeke...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say... Actually, I forgot what I was going to say. You just continue. I'll remember it.
I was going to say that I think the facial hair makes him look older than he actually is. Facial hair can make guys look a lot older than they actually are, to be fair.
I mean...
That's true.
Zach, not
the
that
wiki...
you would know.
Fuck you. The wiki lists him as being 27, although I'm not sure where that... Oh, no, now it lists him as being 25. The hell?
The wiki is being...
I remember what I was going to say.
Being edited as he's reading it.
I was going to say that Grisha's profession when he was in the walls was he was a
doctor.
A doctor. I was literally about to say medicine man. I don't know why.
He was a witch doctor.
I forgot the name, the term doctor. But anyway,
he was a shaman.
So maybe he was a shaman. So maybe he found a way to prolong his life. Maybe he worked on, because didn't Kruger even mention that the person who falsified his blood work to make him get in the Marley army was also working on Titan serums. It said it's a good way to also be in contact with that.
Do you think that's going to be Do you think that's going to be the happy ending? Is that they start manufacturing, like mass producing, like a Zombrex?
They get an AIDS vaccine.
Yeah, they start mass producing like a Zombrex Titan.
It might not be a vaccine. It might just simply be a way to prolong a shifter's life.
Yeah.
Or if only by 5-7 years to excuse Grisha's prolonged life.
Well, imagine if they're able to make a vaccine, or not necessarily a max vaccine. Let's just call it a medicine, and say that if you take it every once in a while, that it'll continue to extend your lifespan. Because that's not as crazy as an idea as some of the other shit that we're going to see in this chapter.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even buy that. I don't see anywhere where Kruger links the doctor that falsified his records with the Titan chemist.
Scotty's point was just that he's a doctor that's, supporting a shifter. Did he know?
Oh, never. I found what you're thinking of. He too was the subject of a mirror. He had falsified his own medical records to pose as a Marleyan. Doctors make good spies. They have the appropriate education and social standing, and they have the knowledge needed to study Titan chemistry.
So if he knows that if the whole Ymir thing makes it so that the Doctor knows about shifters, he knows about the Titan powers, right? So that excuses
everyone knew.
So that excuses him having the knowledge of that, so that he could actually work on making some kind of bullshit cure, right? So it's possible.
Well, it never says that he specifically worked on serums or anything. It just says the knowledge needed to study Titan chemistry.
Well, he also wasn't tied to Grisha either. He was tied.
Which also makes you wonder, how the fuck are they studying Titan chemistry? Do they take their Eldians into labs and just like inject them and like basically torture them to find stuff out?
I would believe it, considering
Probably.
last chapter.
That's
chapter
fucked up even by their standards.
We saw last chapter Grisha being tortured.
Yes. For intelligence.
Yeah, so
which
why
is something
wouldn't
that our government does too.
So
There's a whole different level between torturing for intelligence and literal human experimentation.
Let's remember there are parallels. Yeah, and there are parallels here between Nazis and Marlies.
Okay, fair. Josef Mengele was a thing.
Nazis did that all the time, experiment on Jews. So
they don't have a moral boundary. Who the fuck are you kidding? They'll do whatever the hell they want. They want to get that knowledge. They're gonna get it. They're gonna send them scientists in there and get it done.
As Somber would say, knowledge is power.
Exactly. Reading Rainbow.
No.
I like my reference better. Fuck you.
I like
mine is current and relevant.
Well, mine is old and nostalgic.
And nobody gives a shit about it, and half the people didn't understand it.
Nostalgia is one of the most powerful emotions.
I believe in our listeners. I believe they know that reference. I have faith. Like Grisha.
Well.
How did that work out for him, Stiller? His whole family died, and all of his friends were murdered.
It worked out all right.
How does that work out for him?
Well, we're going to see by the time the story ends how well that worked out for him.
What do you mean they weren't all murdered? They were the Tross Titans. Eren killed them all.
Who said something about his compatriots? I didn't say anything about that.
I did. I said his friends got murdered, and you said they weren't murdered.
I didn't say that.
Pretty sure you did.
I did not. Check the tape.
I don't have the tape, fuckface.
I have the tape. I'll leave that shit
exactly.
in. They can find it themselves. But
you're gonna cut it out from the background.
My point was.
No, don't deny it. You're gonna cut it out from the background.
No, I'm not, because I didn't say that. What I actually said, but the point I was gonna make was, by the time the story is over, we'll see how well that worked out for him. If it was actually all that sacrificing and shit was worth it or not. We will see. I tend to think, based on the way the stories go, that it'll end up with it working out in some way, so that Grisha's sacrifices were not all in vain.
Oh, I mean, I think that goes without saying. I mean,
yeah.
Of course, we're getting a fucking happy ending.
Of course.
See how much pussied out of the good one.
Well, this is why I thought that Scotty's idea about the cure or the serum or whatever, extending that deadline, is probably what the happy ending is. That they created some kind of bullshit to, Eren's not really gonna die. We just wanted to, scare you a little bit. Now that we're
watch the fucking cure be Ackerman blood. Holy shit! What if that's the reason Grisha was always visiting Mikasa's family? He needed Ackerman blood in order to stay alive.
Oh my god, it was Mikasa's mom, right?
No, it was her dad. Her mom was the Asian.
Okay, the dad had the Ackerman blood. Because they're immune to all the fucking
everything else.
Yeah, they're immune to all.
So he fucking needed Ackerman blood to stay alive. So the ending of the series is going to be Armin and Eren hooked up to a Mikasa IV.
Yep.
But then wait, okay, so that would actually explain kind of why Grisha was like, I have Mikasa, how about we'll adopt you? Because he wanted Mikasa. Because he's like, but then why?
Let's just adopt you.
Stepdad doesn't molest her in her sleep. He just draws her blood.
Yeah.
But then why wouldn't Mikasa's blood work to prolong Grisha's life?
Who said it wouldn't?
But then why did he have to give it up real quick?
Because
the Rice were following him.
And because the wall fell, and he had to go deal with Frida, and he had to go do all that shit.
And because the Rice now knew his face, so he had to give the powers to someone else.
So the question that Scotty's asking is that if we're saying this theory is true, then there is no more time limit on Grisha's 13 years, so that he theoretically didn't have to pass the power on to Eren.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, what we talked about, like, God, 10 months ago, is the reason Grisha passed the power to Eren after he ate Frida is that Rod Rice survived and saw his face. So the entire government would be looking for him, basically. So he had to pass the power off to someone else.
I don't necessarily buy that, because...
That feels kind of lazy to me.
And not only that, but, like, it doesn't make sense, because if you think of... Okay, so Rod saw Grisha's face, therefore he can track down Grisha. Then if he can track Grisha, he can track his son. And then if
he doesn't know who his son is.
He'd know if he knew who Grisha was. He'd say, oh, okay, let me track down the dude who...
Hey, intern number 4, go pull the records on this doctor who used to live in Shiganshina. He has a son? Let's go pay his son a visit. Oh, he's in the military? Go good! Exactly. I have connections in the military. This will be fun.
My don't have those kinds of records.
Yes, Zach, absolutely they do. Zach,
I doubt they have
was a
birth
doctor.
certificates.
Zach, listen. Zach, listen. If Rod has the capability to find Grisha, then he absolutely has the capability to find his son. Okay. If he...
Grisha was a doctor, for crying out loud.
Wait, no, but what do you mean? What did you say, Zach, in response to that?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Because it makes complete parallel sense. If you can find his Grisha...
I'm pretty sure this is a theory that all of us signed off on the first time we talked about it.
Well, and what we're...
Just gonna say that.
We're trying to finalize it. The theory that...
No thanks, I have a boyfriend.
The theory that Grisha is using Ackerman blood to sustain himself, so therefore, why did he leave Eren?
Oh. Yeah, I'm just trying to tie the loose ends, because I'm trying to hold it up to scrutiny so that I can think of whether or not I want to go all in on this theory.
So to clarify, what you're saying is that because Eren or Grisha, either one of them would have been tracked down at some point, Grisha decided, I can't actually get away from this. I have no choice but to transfer this to Eren now, because they will use one of them against me. They will use either me or Eren against me, either way.
But then where that falls apart is if Rod found Grisha the same method as if he was alive and said, okay, so now, Grisha died, then he must have given the power to someone else. Mm-hmm. And then he would have went, okay, now Eren is his son. Well, not
necessarily that he died as much as he's missing. Which could have been he took the power and fled the walls as well.
It could have been, you're right.
Because nobody knew that Grisha was dead.
But then, did they know? Well, they definitely knew that given the power to a different person is possible.
Yeah, they knew it was possible, but they also knew he came from outside the walls.
Wouldn't they assume that he was dead? Because if they can't find him inside the walls, anybody who goes outside the walls is eventually going to die eventually. Because you can't.
Not if you're a Titan shifter.
You can't survive out there though.
Not if you're a Titan shifter.
Even if you're a Titan
shifter,
you
have to remember the Rice know the truth of the walls. It's not just infinite Titans out there. There is a finite boundary across which you are safe in Marley territory.
Even if you're a Titan shifter, we've seen scenarios of shifters being outnumbered pretty badly and it not going well for them.
Yet Grisha got to the walls in the first place. Zeke, Reiner, Berthold, Annie, and half of Marcel all got to the walls. So it's clearly feasible.
The group of 4, obviously they're going to get there by themselves. But Grisha, I don't know how.
Well, from what we've seen, Zeke and Annie weren't with Reiner, Berthold, and Marcel.
Well, we don't know how they got there either. So
right, but Grisha was alone.
That's the kicker, I think. Is that Grisha
and if he got in alone, he can get out alone.
But getting out isn't necessarily the end-all be-all. I mean, once you get out, you still have to survive.
Well,
and if you're out there for long enough...
What's he going to do from out there anyway? He still has to interact somehow with the walls inside. He's not just going to go out there and...
He now has the coordinate. GG.
He can't use it.
They know that there are still royal family members out there, though.
But how? He would have to transfer it to one of them, then.
Well, he would still have to
Or just touch them.
This is what I meant.
And I don't think he has any problem with getting Dina to let him touch her.
Dina was dead by that point. If he was going to flee...
Rob Rice doesn't know that.
Did he
There's a lot of loose ends here.
There's a lot of questions here. That's right. But
my point is that they know that he obviously came from outside the walls to steal a coordinate, and
the reason we're arguing about this
and get back outside the walls, and there are royal family members out there who can use the coordinate.
The reason we're arguing about this is to try and validate the theory that Grisha used Ackerman blood as the staving off point for the 13 years. I think if we want to just table it at, hey, that sounds kind of like a possible theory, I think that's probably fine.
And it's the more I think about it, the more I think it's plausible, because becoming a doctor would be the best absolute cover-up for drawing blood of patients. So it would make complete sense why he'd visit, routinely on Mikasa's parents, and then
Plus,
just take
bloodletting was probably
blood
still a
work.
thing.
Remember that plague that happened? Maybe that plague was Grisha going, hey, what happens if I use Ackerman blood on regular people? What happens?
No, I doubt it was that. What some people said, which I thought was both hilarious and plausible, was that it was just literally a plague accidentally started by Grisha because he brought in a virus that was extinct inside the walls.
That's possible. That's a pretty good theory, actually.
It's possible, but I don't think it's true, because it would serve literally no significance at all. I mean, it would be a cool nod to like, oh, so that's what started the plague.
This right here is the significance. Is it confusing us and us trying to figure out what it means?
Exactly.
Chekhov's gun. We don't know if it's a relevant detail or not.
The plague? I mean, but what point did the plague serve? It doesn't. I mean, I know
it introduced Grisha to Carla. It gave.
I still want that side story, by the way. I really.
What side story?
The story of Grisha meeting Carla and going through all that. I want that so bad to see the look on that motherfucker's face, knowing the shit that he knows and trying to chase Carla.
And then the look on Shadis' face as he gets cucked.
Fucking scumbag. Jeez.
Cucked by an illegal alien at that.
Let's hop all the way back to the beginning of this discussion.
Really?
Where we had started talking about the 13 years thing, and Scotty's theory about the Grisha and all that before. What do you guys think about that plot point, or that element?
The 13 years thing?
Yeah. Do you think
I think it's stupid.
Is that okay? So you think that's a contrivance and that's convoluted?
I think it's stupid bullshit meant as nothing but like an artificial time limit to add a sense of urgency to the story.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I'm surprised.
I don't know. I mean,
I'm glad. I'm surprised you thought that, Zach. I'm glad.
Yeah, I am too, honestly.
It's tricky though when you think of it in terms of an artificial element, because it's just what Isayama's writing. Clearly, this is all just artificial to some extent. It's a matter of whether or not it fits well into the story, whether it's organic or not, or whether it feels just rushed for the sake of a specific purpose. And I think I agree with Zach and Stiller in the sense that it definitely feels as if it was rushed, and it was like, out of a curveball out of left field, which served no plot purpose besides giving a false sense of, or a true sense of urgency, whichever one. I don't like that.
So it definitely does not feel organic right now, but what if in 2 chapters or 3 chapters we get a flashback to the Shifter kids and them inheriting this power and then being told, hey, you have 13 years to live now. Good luck with that mission of yours. And then then
if they die within the walls, I just realized if their 13 years expires while they're outside of the walls on their mission, that shifter power has a 50-50 shot of being in the walls or being in Marley control.
It's true. But the point I was going to make is that this plot element does not feel organic, and it feels like forced bullshit right now. But Isayama could try and retcon it in so that it has importance on the characters we know, like Reiner and Berthold, and how their despair and how they, felt shitty about the things that they had to do was kind of caused by this a little bit, because they felt like they were rushed and that they really didn't have a choice. I feel like that's probably coming, but at this point, now as it's being introduced right now, I agree. I think it's bullshit. I think it's totally forced.
You know what would really annoy me is if after 3 chapters of Eren memory flashbacks, we suddenly switch to 3 chapters of Armin memory flashbacks, because then it's just then it's too much. Then it is too damn much.
Armin's flashbacks to Berthold as a kid, and the next chapter just opens. We just get a cold drop into the flashback where it's Berthold. When I was a kid and I had met Reiner for the first time, I mean,
I guess a cool way to start it out would be just the chapter opens up and you see the Colossal Titan kicking down the wall from his point of view. That would be cool. The rest of that would be bullshit.
I kind of want it just because of how hilarious it would be. I kind of want it because at this point, fuck it. Why not? We're almost there. We're almost at the end of the story. I don't care that much. Fucking do it.
Yeah, and then we're just stretching it out to the point where the remaining 20 chapters or so can't really have that much content because, bam, we just wasted 10 on useless flashbacks.
From this point on, every single 3 chapters are going to be getting the backstory of all the 6 shifters we have no idea about. We're going to get backstories about characters we have literally no idea about.
There will
Just
be
like the last episode of Dead Man Wonderland.
Oh yeah. That was really good. I'm glad I like that. Reference.
Yeah,
that's
fuck
good.
that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love it. It's great.
Hate that series.
So speaking of dumb forced bullshit, back to Scott. I know it's Scott's point. Zach's point of the shifter death and what happens to the Titan power. Let's have the same conversation now, but let's talk about the plot element of the shifter power. If a Titan dies, goes to a random baby that is an Eldian child.
I think that.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a dumb concept, but it's even dumber when you think about how it serves literally no purpose within the context of the story, because the child would have to grow up to adulthood, or even, to young adulthood, 13-year-old-hood, in order to even matter regarding, So, yeah, let's combine the 2 points here. Doesn't that mean that baby can only live to 13? Yeah,
well, there's been some debate on that. If it could be either the first time the power activates, which then the question is, how the fuck do you know you turn into a Titan when you bite yourself and get really pissed? And there's the camp that thinks it is literally just 13 years after you get the power, bam, you're dead. Have a nice life, cancer kid.
I kind of like to think that, there's a kid like Jean who's sitting there eating an omelet, and all of a sudden he accidentally bites his tongue. Fucking bam, shifter kills his mom, blows up the fucking house.
I think it's probably going to be
dumb.
It is dumb. I think it'll be.
While shifter aids added a sense of urgency to the story, this did quite the opposite, in that it no longer made every single shifter power precious and oh no, if one dies, they're gone forever.
Yeah.
Now it's just, oh okay, we'll just play shifter roulette and hopefully it'll land on our side.
So
it would have weighed. Oh, go so.
Did this baby thing get explained at all about how this works or why it's like this?
It's through the coordinate.
Well, why did Ymir, the devil, whoever lady, or whoever the fuck made this, why did they make it like this? Why is it a baby?
I doubt she chose to set it up that way.
If she didn't, then who did?
Apparently Satan.
Why did Satan make it? Why is it like this?
Because it's fucking Satan!
There's no explanation for this!
Are you questioning the motives of an evil god who wants nothing but chaos and destruction?
No, or if you ask an Oldian, it's the goddess of life or whatever.
That's even worse, though. Because if it's a benevolent entity, that's not a benevolent thing to make happen. It's to make a baby.
Either it's shifter aids, but that's still a thing.
First, I just want to say, I want to make a point.
About this is terrible.
Going back to the baby transfer power aspect for 1 second, I want to just touch on the fact that it could be made so much better and it could be so much more relevant if instead of it being to a baby, it was to a random Eldian, regardless of their age. That would make it so much more relevant, because then it could be a potential other character who could be a shifter and then play a role. Now it's,
Sasha.
So anybody who...
Sasha.
Yeah, but anybody who now dies, it's irrelevant who gets the power, because clearly this story is not going to span another 13 years to make it relevant. So that shifter power is just gone for the remainder of the story, and plays absolutely no role. So in that regard, it's the most pointless aspect of that power that had absolutely no reason to be put into the story.
Do you think if it transfers to a living... Well, it only transfers to babies if the shifter just dies.
What defines a baby? When do they turn old enough? What is the biological clock that is flipped?
This is a good question.
Being able to receive it.
This is probably the Naruto thing, where it's at conception.
There are a lot of parallels, by the way. So there was a powerful being that split their abilities into 9 different entities.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's good.
That's identical to whatever that guy's name is, splitting the 9 tailed beasts.
The 9-tailed fox, the Kitsune?
Well, whoever it was that, like, split that being in the first place.
Yeah.
There's only one thing I know about fucking Naruto, and that's, I will be the next Hokage!
You know, that makes this plot element even fucking worse, because it's a fucking parallel to Naruto, so it's a cliche piece of shit.
And it's
not just a shitty plot element, it's a reused shitty plot element.
Can I change my stance on this chapter?
Yeah, sure.
You know, I don't think I like this chapter that much. I think this chapter, like, it started out fine, and I think the first half of this chapter was okay. Like, the conversations were neat, and, you know, the dialogue and the symbolism and all that stuff were cool. But then when you get to the second half of this chapter, where they start talking about some of the plot elements with the Titan babies and the 13 years to live and the how sad everyone is about all that's bullshit. Because all the magic Titan power shit is so poorly explained and forced into this chapter that it's almost laughable. Like it's a joke that he included that in this chapter. Why just dump it in here and not explain how this shit works?
And Stiller, to go off of your point, it's even more laughable when you consider the explanation for the Titan power. I forget it was either Kruger or it was Grisha who said it. He's like, so magic exists?
Yeah, Grisha asked that. Grisha asked that. I thought that was awesome.
And then Kruger's response is, fuck if I know.
It's like, oh my god. Like, so literally the entire Titan shifter power. I remember years ago.
Can we talk about that, where Grisha, we had a character in the story literally ask another important character, so is this like magic? Does magic exist here? Is that what's going on?
And the other character goes, I don't know, this is pretty shitty storytelling is all I can tell you.
I mean, this is how it worked for me, man, so yeah, you take it and good luck figuring this shit out.
This is what my first time was like, dude. I don't know what it's going to be like for you, but I mean, for me, it was pretty magical, okay?
So good luck with that.
Paul Andre is going to have a fucking field day with this chapter in 10 years.
Yeah, he will. It'll be 10 years, too.
I just want to go back in time and tell our 2 years younger selves when we made the podcast. I recall not the exact podcast, but the conversation we had surrounding what was causing the shifters, like what was the start of them, right?
Yeah.
And we had all these cool theories, and we grounded in technology and whatnot. I want to go back and tell those people, hey fellas, it's explained literally by Grisha saying, I guess magic exists. And that's literally the entire explanation behind Titans.
I want to go.
It's a magical girl, Allah who Akbar'd herself into 9 different people.
I want to go back to our big argument about mind wipes, and I remember specifically, the exact line that I said was, if mind wipes exist, this shit rolls downhill, and anything can happen from here on out. And
yeah, I'm starting to get on board with you, Stiller, and what the fuck is happening to my story?
And now here we are, where mind wipes are fucking tame compared to the shit that we're seeing introduced now.
I hate how you're right. Oh god.
Like, if we get more of this, I'm about ready to tap out. You know?
Mind wipes. That's nothing.
I think I might be in the minority here. I think mind wipes are way worse, because mind wipes, they're not even excusable by the lack of information we're given in the story.
You know what the argument is against that? The argument against that is, well, shifters appear in a flash of lightning. How do you explain the lightning?
It's magic, bro. It's just magic.
Exactly. It's fucking literally stupid.
No, it's the high energy from sending the Titan body and bones and shit through the coordinate system.
No, I don't think that's true. I would love that explanation.
Are you saying that it's Titan shifting is like the Doppler effect?
Yeah, I don't think that's what the Doppler effect is, but
well, like radar, when you sprinkle a raindrop like on a bigger pool, like it has a ripple effect. You know what I mean?
That's not the Doppler effect, though.
Is that not what that is?
No, the Doppler effect is how sound sounds lower when it's farther away.
Oh, well, I used the wrong term then. I need Ryan here to explain this fucking shit because Because Ryan knows what the weather term is.
Fine, I'll
for that.
ping him.
Ryan, what's the weather term?
Ryan, get in here.
I don't need
He is going to be so confused now.
I don't need to know.
Anyway.
I don't need to know what the Doppler effect is anymore. I need to know what the thing I'm thinking of is.
Zach,
It's basically calling down a mech from the heavens.
Is it just sonar I'm thinking of?
no.
It's Wi-Fi. It's fucking Wi-Fi.
No.
I guess
Wi-Fi combined with a 3D printer.
Wi-Fi is the paths. We're not to the paths yet. I'm just talking about when lightning strikes a shifter. That, I think, is just like a sonar blast or something. You know what I mean?
Which still doesn't happen in the manga. Like,
it doesn't matter. I think
we have the explosions, but we don't have lightning itself.
Your explanation, Zach, belongs in the podcast 2 years ago, because in current we got magic as the explanation. So all of that technology and science bullshit has to be thrown out the window. We just got magic, and magic's the trump all, the easiest plot device of all time.
I'm going to give you one of my favorite quotes. Magic is simply that which cannot yet be explained by means of science.
Scotty,
Nah, I don't buy that Thor bullshit. I don't buy it.
Scotty, I want you to go back to your train of thought about mind wipes. I want to hear that again.
No, I was just saying, like, how you were saying the things in this chapter and that have happened in recent events are worse than mind wipes.
Yeah.
And I think mind wipes are still, to me at least, on the top of the shitty block.
At the time, I said mind wipes are going to be like the tipping point. This is the jumping the shark moment. That's what I said. This is the jumping the shark moment where anything that happens after this can be traced back to this moment when it was confirmed. Right? So
Yeah.
I think these elements that we're seeing now are like plot device wise worse than mind wipes, but I blame mind wipes for all of this shit now.
Even though 90% of it was likely planned out before mind wipes were.
Whew. God.
So back to what I was saying about the Titan power, or the Titan shifting literally being just Diva's callback ultimate. I mean, Eren does say to Armin, the subjects of Yumiya are all connected by something invisible. One successor said they saw paths invisible to the eyes. The blood and bones that formed a Titan were sent to them through those paths. It just sounds to me like when you shift, the Titan body is basically sent to you by a collective of all Elodians.
It's fucking Wi-Fi. All the people.
It's Wi-Fi combined with a 3D printer.
The shifters are Wi-Fi access points. Every single one of them.
It's Wi-Fi connected with the spirit bomb. Essentially, the Aldians are given power to one source.
Put your hands up. Put your hands up and send your power.
It makes me wonder though, if this is true, if like a little chunk of every Elodian is taken every time someone shifts, like just a few cells of blood.
Here, have some of my bone. Here, have some of my blood.
You're getting too into it, Zach. I think that's good fan theory, but it'll absolutely play no part. Could you imagine if actually, like, the average lifespan, if you were to go into the genealogical, like, records of the people within the walls, it just seems like over time the average lifespan decreases, and it's because what you said was true, Zach, and literally they're sapping Eldians of their life over time.
Cells regenerate.
It's like every time.
But you said life force.
I mean, Scott, that's like saying that if I go to donate blood, my lifespan is going to be shortened.
This is like This is like that.
The spirit bomb.
This is like that Trump meme. Every time you shift, it adds another, or it takes away something from the person. You know what I mean?
10 feet higher.
1 year lost. This is the absolute fucking worst. Why is it like this? Why did this have to happen? You know what I find funny?
The presidential election or this turn in the story?
Both. But you know what I find you know what I find funny is this is the kind of reaction that I had to Mikasa way back in the day, when I was still bitching about Mikasa and her unexplained strength and her unexplained skill in comparison to everybody else, and how I think only me, Scotty, I don't know if you were in on it, Ryan, I don't know if he was in on it, but so few people had keyed in on that, and I had that reaction at the time, and I'm having that reaction again years later, and it has not gotten any fucking better, even though at the time we had all said, I'll just wait and see how it plays out. Just
So
wait
you're
and see
basically
how it plays
gloating
out.
with the predicted Ackerman.
I'm gloating so fucking hard because
Wait a minute, I'm confused. What are you gloating
Congratulations, you saw foreshadowing. What the fuck do you
about?
want, a parade?
What foreshadowing are you referring to?
it's not foreshadowing. It's that people had told me at the time that if I wait and saw how it played, how these plot details were going to be revealed, that everything would work itself out, and that the inadequacies that I was complaining about at the time would be solved by retconning, essentially. And
Oh yeah, Stiller. I mean,
so here I am now, years later, complaining about the same type of shit, and probably going to get told the same thing once this episode goes up. It'll be fine in 2 or 3 chapters. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
I feel
we'll get a hope, an ultimate hope coming. It's just going to defeat all of this despair. Okay.
The ultimate nullifier.
But still,
the super high school level hope.
Probably. I feel disappointed still that you you seem to forget how we spent multiple podcasts railing on the different lineages and how they're bullshit.
Oh yeah, we did
so much. Yeah, so I was on that boat with you. Give me some credit there.
Yeah, I couldn't recall, but I seem to recall either you or Ryan or both of you were on that at some point with me.
I never got off. I hated it, and I still hate it.
So what do you think of, or if it were to be true that the Ackerman blood was the cure then? What would reaction to that be?
Well, it's the same reaction. It's still a fucking contrivance. We're just tying together loose ends by what's conveniently fucking available.
I honestly, I don't think I would get that mad at that. Actually, I think that's kind of clever, and it does tie into past events. You see, I don't care if lineage plays a role if it's passive, in the sense of, okay, so your blood has resilience to a certain effect. I get that. That's actually a real thing. People have immunities. That's a real concept. So I wouldn't be, like, oh, that's ridiculous. What I draw offense to is when, oh, your blood makes you, or your last name makes you a great fighter out the gate. It's like, I don't buy that. That's where I draw the line.
Basically eugenics the anime.
So yeah. I guess Scotty, I think it might be fair to say where the line is whether it's how well explained it is that Grisha had discovered that the Ackerman blood is a cure. If it's not well explained, then it's bullshit. But if they actually give the good detail about how he figured that shit out, then it's fine.
I think it might be explained through Grisha forming a relationship with Mikasa and their family, and then
his dad was at the bar. They were knocking a few back, and he said, "Man, yeah." My blood.
And then
I sure do love being a part of a secret society that helps cure Titan AIDS.
No. But I'm saying in terms of Grisha finding out that their blood cures Titan AIDS is if Grisha would find out through conversation, maybe drunken conversation, Mikasa's father would let it slip. Oh, by the way, I know some shit I shouldn't know. And then he'd say, how do you know that? And then it's like, oh, and then he goes into
let me show you my basement.
He goes into how Ackerman blood actually is like special or something like.
I think it might be more like Grisha finds out about the Ackermans while he's trying to track down the Rice. He finds out, oh, why are they trying to hunt down this family? Oh, they're from the Asia. They're from this other place.
Yes.
They're this other bloodline. Maybe they can help with Elodian diseases. And then he tries to track them down and I'll draw your blood, and then injects it into himself and magically lives longer.
I explicitly want him to say the Asia. I desperately want him to say that. I want somebody to say that. I want that so bad.
I'm sure we can get Mika to mistranslate something to make that happen.
Oh, you're from the Asia. Oh, you're from the China?
I am from the Elodia.
I'm from Nickelodeon.
Yeah. What's the joke?
Wait, shit, that's McDonald's.
The joke is, oh, you're from Elodia. I'm from the neighboring country, Nickel.
There we go.
Fuck me. God damn it.
What? Doesn't even make sense.
That's the absolute
it makes
worst.
sense. Think about it for a minute.
It's a reference I didn't get, isn't it?
No, I just split the word.
Combine the 2 words.
Yeah. Nickel.
Elodia Nickel?
Oh, yeah. Nickel.
Other way around.
Oh, motherfucker!
This fucking chapter.
Okay, real quick. People want me to tell you that they say hi. So it was actually the person that wanted to be on the podcast, just so we could show me.
Right, that guy.
He said, if you don't say hi for me, I'm not going to help you downgrade your other 3DS, so I had to do it.
Oh, well. Isn't he the one that wanted to come on just so he could, like, talk shit to us?
Yes.
And,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
He's currently in the hospital, so...
Oh, well. I mean, I could still say fuck that guy, but not like in a not like in a hostile and like I hope you die way, just in a kind of like fuck you for being an asshole.
You got what you deserved kind of way.
Not like that. Not in a hostile way.
That's what you mean, still. I know.
Well,
in your heart of hearts, that's what you mean.
Exactly. In my inner heart, like publicly, it's just kind of fuck you. Just you don't be like that. And in my inner heart of hearts, it's like, yeah, whatever, fucking ride that bed, you know.
Dirty, filthy Lodian.
Hold that L. Take that L and hold that shit.
Hold these hands real quick.
That's yeah, exactly.
Honestly, I think we're getting near to the end of the chapter.
Well, we railed so hard against all the important plot details that came out. I think we're ready to skip past most of the shit in this chapter.
Because literally, like, the bulk of what's left is Grisha has Survivor's Guild, doesn't want to continue, and then Kruger's like...
We should talk about the paths a little more. We should talk a bit about
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is what about the fact that literally every Elodian is currently connected through Aaron?
And I want to shout out to the people making Avatar jokes and the Avatar memes about the parallel between this shit with the paths and the what was the joke? The spirit bomb.
Are we talking
you said?
like? Are we talking?
Yeah, spirit bomb.
Yeah, this is the same thing.
Four elements Avatar. Or
we're talking about like the person inheriting powers and shit, and like being able to communicate with old avatars.
So we're talking the anime Avatar, not blue people.
Right, anime Avatar.
Okay.
And how the Avatar was able to communicate with like ghost avatars and like old avatars through some sort of fucking spiritual network, and it's fucking they'd have legit conversations where they'd just be standing in front of each other talking. It's fucking stupid. But I've
never seen Avatar, but that just screams the first king at me.
Yeah, what that's talking about the first king. I want to kind of rail on that too, for coming from that part of the Rice arc that most of us hated, and that how we weren't sure if the first king was a ghost or not, and if there was some kind of fucking magic going on with him influencing other people's willpower, like overpowering people's minds, possessing them or some shit.
Which this chapter even reconfirmed, because people say that they felt a will acting on them.
God, like,
you know what?
What we're gonna run out of ways to talk about how we hate that. Like, what else could we say? You know?
I got another way to hit that. What do you think happens when he uses the mind wipe and those Aldians that are on the mainland, do they get their minds wiped? How does that look? How does he...
I assume it Oh, good point, because if it goes through the coordinate, then it should affect all Eldians and the Titans.
Was there ever a range established on the mind wipes?
It doesn't matter now that we've got the coordinate system.
Like how is the mind wipes distributed though? Like,
it literally is the paths. In the past,
it's going to go through the coordinate.
Well, like before,
the coordinate is the one that issues the mind wipes. He is the one connected to everything. He is the central server in a network of computers. If you put a virus on that server, it infects all the computers.
So yeah, okay. Well, I was gonna ask before we knew about the paths, though. Did we just assume that it was a coordinate power that could like control people? I guess
we didn't assume that there were Elodians outside of the walls.
You know, before there were paths, I guess we were thinking that it was like a pulse blast, like a mind.
Yeah.
Radio tower
like a
kind of thing.
EMP activated. Boom. It's done.
And it's kind of like that, but actually on a network instead of just a open.
Apagando las luces.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
What, my Overwatch reference or the story?
No, these plot elements.
Also, I'd like to ask a question. Okay, so this might be a dumb one, but what's the difference between... So,
is this one of our asked questions, or just your question?
No, just my question.
Okay.
So, Fritz's are the royal bloodline that can use the coordinate to their full potential. So, what is a Rice? Yeah.
We don't know.
So, but Rices can also use the coordinate?
Well, Rice...
The guess is the Rice changed their last name to throw any Marleyans off the scent.
The Rice were the Fritz, but split off after they had moved from the mainland so that they wouldn't be easily identifiable.
Is our guess.
Okay, I got
It's not confirmed yet.
So so we're thinking that the Rice are just actually the Fritz, but with a different
Right.
name.
So what I'm saying is that's the guess.
Right.
The Rice noble family and the Fritz noble family switched names.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I can buy into that.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah.
That whole magic conversation between Aaron and Grisha, it kind of fucking there's a panel where Kruger says there's a dialogue piece that Kruger says where he says there is no such thing as truth in this world, that is our reality. And then on the other side of his head,
fake news.
And then on the other side of his head, it says anyone can become a god or a devil. All it takes is for someone to claim to be that truth. I hate that this conversation about magic is tied to the Shades of Grey because it fucking taints it. And
I thought it wasn't tied to the Shades of Grey as much as it is like
current news. The bit about there is no such thing as
Factualism.
truth. There is no such thing as truth. Anyone can become a god or devil. That's exactly what that is. And seeing him say that and then thinking, this is the same guy who just said that magic maybe exists, kinda. It's like... It hurts
What
me.
he's saying is we have no way of knowing if it's magic or if it's the source of all organic matter and all that because the original history has been destroyed and diluted.
It just hurts me to read that.
I think it matters. It doesn't matter anything really. It's like regardless of whether or not, as you said, Zach, it's like the source of all organic matter or however you phrase that. It's the same mumbo jumbo bullshit that's essentially magic. I mean, because there's nothing that could realistically in our world account for in a scientific way. Oh, so when someone dies, they inherit powers to turn into a shifter through lightning. It better damn well be magic, or else there's no other explanation for it. So, I mean, it's...
Well, I doubt we're going to get a specific, detailed, scientific explanation of this.
Well, no, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is that it's for all intents and purposes, it's magic regardless of the explanation.
Well, no, there's in-universe magic and then there's anime magic. In-universe magic is shifters. Anime magic is 3DMG. There's a difference.
Okay, well, in real life I'm doing the jack-off animation because that's what I have to say to that, is it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no difference.
I kind of guessed, or like imagine you doing that anyways, but you saying it just confirmed it.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I just did it like you guys could see me. Yes. Jerking your hand over your crotch, yes. Anyways, I just thought about, back when Aaron first used the coordinate, right? How we got that quick flash to Reiner, Berthold, and Ymir, like they all got the little electric shock through their minds.
Yeah.
That's because they were all connected,
right.
And him using the coordinate probably affected all Titans, not just like, never mind. They were connected through that path system.
I wonder what. Can you imagine what Zeke was thinking right then? Where in his mind he heard Aaron go, "Hey, kill Reiner."
He probably had a Darth Vader no moment. He just like.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly.
The Eldians have awakened the coordinate. No.
Yeah, that would have been appropriate, I think. Oh, it would have been early at the time, so that wouldn't have been a good decision, but it would have been appropriate. I mean, no.
Oh, I wish they had just cut across to the Monkey Titan or to Monkey Trouble, just doing that.
Yeah.
Just the no. That would have been amazing.
So.
And so confusing for everyone else, or for everyone else.
For railing on it so hard, I do want to give some credit to Kruger, actually going into a little bit more detail about the whole Shades of Grey thing, where he was talking about there not being such a thing as truth, and he gave the examples of what the Mara had said, and it was in their history about the 1700 years of ethnic cleansing, and he explained why that's a dumb possibility. And then he talked about the other one. He said, well, what about the one where Ymir had made roads and made everything awesome for everybody? That doesn't sound
And
like...
she did nothing bad ever.
Yeah, she did nothing bad ever. That doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard of. Christianity, maybe, or does not exist, so I've never heard of a Jesus figure, so I don't know if that's possible. You know. But I want to give credit to...
Well, even Jesus did bad in his life, though.
I want to give...
So, like,
I want to give
it's even worse.
To...
It's like, name one person who's never done anything wrong in their lives.
I at least want to give Isayama credit for actually trying to detail that a little bit better, you know, and how they were talking about Dina, and he said, well, either I turned her into a mindless titan here, or she goes back on a ship to the Mar, and she's used as a, what's the term, a breeding sow?
Sex doll? Oh yeah, breeding sow, that works too.
And I chose this because it was probably better for her, but then again, I didn't really ask. I just figured this was probably better.
That reminds me, that's actually a fetish, and there's probably some doujins of that being made right now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. There's that guy in Japan who's making that right now.
That guy. My wife, Dina. Shall we milk for all eternity?
You remember that time she was in that one chapter that we saw her as a human? Yeah, that was enough for that guy. But
for sure.
But do you think that Kruger's decision was actually the better one of the two options?
Yes. It's euthanasia as opposed to a lifetime of rape.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's not a matter of whether or not he, at the point of injecting her, made that decision. Because he could have easily turned into his Titan and then just killed them and saved Dina regardless, with that not even being an actual possibility. So it doesn't really...
What would he have done with her? Where would she have gone?
Well, that's the thing, is that from there it's fishy because he only has one shifter power, so he can't really save her. So then it turns into, well, might as well kill her. So, but then that's also morally gray because it's like, what do you do in that situation? Do you let someone live a short life? Or actually this could happen. So he says, okay, so Grisha, you're going to eat me, and then you take Dina and you just carry her until you get to the very precipice of the wall and then shipped back, and it's like both of you walk into the actual walls. That could happen.
Why didn't he do that? Right, that's a good idea. I was thinking they could have explained away that 7-year gap if he'd have just injected Dina first and then given them another serum. Maybe like,
that's
hey,
true.
Grisha, a couple years from now.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have had the thing with the Smiling Titan actually being Dina.
Yeah.
Well,
that's an example of Isayama writing himself in a corner.
Yeah.
And well, no, I think that was planned out from the very beginning. But plus, then nothing would have happened because you're not going to eat your wife that you love more than anything.
So let's talk about that a little bit. How Isayama had planned this story out from the very beginning. And over the course of the series, we've seen Isayama put out statements like, well, you know, I don't think I'm going to go with that ending anymore. I think I'm going to change it a little bit. It's like, oh, I'm not sure about this part of the story. I think this is the most questionable part of the story. I think this is where most of the flaws are. Oh, I'm not sure about this character and the motivations that I made for this character. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the way this is going to play out anymore. He started second-guessing himself, right? So...
Right.
When I had just mentioned about him possibly writing himself in a corner, and you said, well, this was the plan from the beginning, I kind of find it funny how we've gotten to this point.
Yes,
where...
he's rewritten many things, but things like Dina have clearly been foreshadowed for a long time, with the coordinate activating when Eren first punched her. So she's clearly been planned at least since chapter 50.
The important parts of the story clearly were planned out from the beginning, but I find it funny how some of these devices and some of these details, I mean, the cracks are there where we can kind of guess, like, oh, this is something that probably changed because he wanted to make the ending like this, or, oh, maybe this changed because, oh, he didn't want to kill that character anymore, and it also helps with that other thing in chapter 90, you know. I just find that funny how over the course of the series and how things have changed in his personal life and how the story's success and how our reactions to it have kind of, I mean, not specifically our reactions to it, but how elements like that have sort of helped change the story as far as him doing rewrites. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah.
I wish I
mean-
want more. I want statements from him about specific scenes and specific elements that changed because of those kind of elements. I'm just out of curiosity's sake.
I'm sure when this is all said and done, because obviously he's gonna want the money train to keep rolling.
Oh yeah.
He might be inclined to pick up from a certain part earlier on in the series and say, and this is how I originally intended it, and then continue from there, and that'll sell a bunch more copies, probably maybe even more than the originals, to be honest. And then that'll just be another, flow of
So kind of
cash.
like how Hellsing Ultimate was to Hellsing, or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood to the original Full Metal Alchemist.
So what do you guys
Well,
think,
sure, but-
what do you guys think about doing a podcast about this?
About what?
About this new perspective, this new retelling of the
Oh,
story.
I'd love it, absolutely.
I'd be up for it.
Funny. That's hilarious to me. All right. So anyway, is there anything else in the chapter? I did my job. Now do yours.
I liked when Kruger said to Grisha, "Do you have any balls?" And like, "Do you have no balls?"
Did they cast?
Yeah,
it?
that was good.
Yeah. I liked the panel of seeing the Grice or whatever his name was in his corpse. It's all fucked up. That
That was not Grease. Grease was Grisha's friend. That was Sergeant Gross.
Grease, gross. Who can keep
God.
up with this?
That's terrible. Anyway, what I was gonna say
Was that
was that's a Metalocalypse corpse right there. Because it's got the tongue
For
hanging
sure.
out and it's got all the fucking blood everywhere.
Yeah, but Titan didn't do a very good job of tightening that guy.
No, it sure didn't. I didn't want to hear his screams. I couldn't bear to hear that man's screams. Oh yeah. Okay, so I want to point this out too. When Kruger's talking about Grisha's dad and how smart Grisha's dad is for going with the flow and flying under the radar.
Yeah.
That is awesome to me because that kind of mentality is what I always said I liked about Nile. Because I think Nile does that exact same thing.
I think it's an extremely odd point to take, and I don't know if I wish someone here like Mika was around who could give us a little more perspective on like the culture that ECM was surrounded by, because we've seen throughout the story and through other people who have said there are a lot of themes from his own, the history of his own country and like, everything that's happened, with wars and such and ideas. And this is literally him saying through a character, hey, when you're oppressed, you better play along and that'll be the best way to survive. And this is a smart man, very smart man for playing along with his oppressors. And it's like, I wonder if that was a message he intended to have for his audience as a core. Like he was trying to send that theme because he actually believed in it. And it's just interesting to me to think that.
I don't think that's I don't think there's a chance in hell that he actually meant, hey, if you're being oppressed, hey, if things aren't going well for you, stand up and kill someone. I really don't think that's what he was going for there. I think he was going for more of a, hey, there are ways to fight this. You don't have to just take this, but if you do just end up taking it, there's a smartness to that because you can avoid a lot of bullshit that way.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, his father ultimately did absolutely nothing, right?
He took it on the chin.
He instilled the anger in Grisha.
He took it on the chin. Well, Grisha did that to himself. His dad didn't want him to do that.
Yeah, his dad didn't do that.
Right, but if he hadn't
carried the burden.
Yeah, carried the burden and prostrated himself before the Marley, then Grisha wouldn't have been that pissed.
And Kruger had actually said that Grisha's dad had wanted to pass that sort of mentality onto his son, and it didn't work, or he failed to do that.
Exactly, and he was being praised as a smart man for that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's just weird
he was being praised as being smart in the sense that he wouldn't have to go through the
I understand.
the kind of conflict that Grisha did as a rebel. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's a smartness in being able to avoid the fight and letting another group actually do the fighting for you. And it's a cowardly thing to say, but you could appreciate what he means by saying that that's smart. I think that's exactly the kind of thing that Nile does, and I really appreciate that about Nile's character, because if you think about, like, I know people ask the question all the time, what would you do if you were in this universe? I would want to be like fucking Nile, because Niall is a smart-ass man. Because he put himself in a position of power, and he has the ability to avoid bullshit conflict that he does not have to be a part of. He can have a family and a life, and he had to deal with all this fucking bullshit. Even now that we're getting into this stuff with the Eldians and the Mar, Niall still doesn't have to give a fuck if he doesn't want to. You know?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. It's just a matter of, I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison from what Chris's father did, because he was actually oppressed by a force,
Well,
whereas
as far as your question goes,
right, it's different in terms of the level and degree of oppression. But yeah, I understand it.
That's true. I appreciate having these two characters, Kruger and Niall, in the story explicitly, just so that perspective is covered. I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah.
He's
I would certainly be there too. I think all of us would.
What's the janitor from The Simpsons that's like he says his name, he's like, don't care.
Is this Scruffy?
Scruffy don't care.
Is that his name?
Oh, maybe.
So.
Is it Willie?
No, is it
No,
Willie?
it's Willie. Yeah,
No,
it's Scruffy. Scruffy here is you. Scruffy don't care. I just Googled it. So it's like that with Niall.
Yeah.
You know what?
Whatever. We made the reference. People get what we're talking about.
Yep.
Okay. So anyway, that we're at the end of the chapter. So now we're at the point where now we're at the point where Kruger says, so all these Titans, there are 9 of them, right? All these Titans have a name, and the Titan that I'm gonna give you has a name too. And it's called the Attack Titan.
The Shingeki no Kyojin.
It's called it's called the Attack Titan, and it represents freedom.
Fuck that.
And moving
Fuck
forward.
that
There's like when Grisha is looking at Shadis, the speech bubble on the left actually says moving ahead, which is very close to the Japanese title Advancing Giants. And then the whole name of the fucking Titan is just called the Attack Titan. I love it.
Because it's supposed to be Attack on Titan. God, they fucked up the translation and they fucked up the name.
I actually love it, and I think it's perfect because I love names that are verb noun in structure, right? Because it doesn't make sense, and that's why I love it, because it's.
I would be fine with the name if that were also the name of the series. But Isayama clearly wanted it to be the same as the name of the series. It is the Shingeki no Kyojin, the Advancing Giant.
Yeah.
He fucked up the English translation of the series name, which is something he specifically requested that the translation be from the beginning. And this is clearly something that he had planned from the beginning.
Well, they can't give the English name for this Titan to be the Advanced Titan.
No, I'm not
dumb.
complaining about that. I'm complaining about the fact that he named his series Attack on Titan if he knew that Titan was going to be the Attack Titan.
What should the name have been?
Something that can be a name easier. The Advancing Giant. Even if he had just called the series Attack Titan, because Attack on Titan itself as a name doesn't make sense.
I don't think that. Well. As far as naming your story goes, it has to have a cool sounding name, and I don't think Advancing Giant or Attack Titan are good names for a story.
No, you know Attack on Titan doesn't make any grammatical sense either.
Yeah, but it's a cool sounding name.
I think Attack on Titan is definitely close enough for my taste to be Attack Titan. Attack on Titan, Attack Titan. You hit the nail on the head. Close enough, And
I think it's not the absolute certainty of you bastard when you read that and realize how clever it was. There are probably tons of people out there that'll just go straight over their heads. Whereas in the Japanese version, it's the Shingeki no Kyojin, motherfucker.
I think you're way off on that, because if someone's
Mika
going
agrees with me.
The Titan name can't be Attack on Titan either. You can't have both. You know what I mean?
No, you can't.
Anybody who would have gotten oh, the Attack Titan's reference to the name Attack Titan versus somebody who misses the mark when it's, oh, the Attack Titan has a relation to Attack on Titan. If you're gonna miss that, then I can't help you. That's just a level of just over your headness that's beyond my comprehension. I just can't see how someone wouldn't get that reference of the Attack Titan versus the name of the show Attack on Titan. That's pretty on the nose enough that I think everyone should get it who can get it.
I'm willing to chalk this up to being a translation problem in some.
It is a translation problem with the name of the series.
It's a translation problem in some aspect, but it doesn't bother me that much.
I don't think it doesn't bother me at all.
It bothers me and it bothers Mika, and that's all I need to know to validate my opinion.
I mean, we understand what he's going for, so I think it's fine.
Yeah, same.
I just think, I was reading the Raws, which is not something I usually do, and I got to it, and this Titan's name is the Shingeki no Kyojin, and I just went, you brilliant motherfucker. You planned this from the very beginning. And then when we get the English translation, it's, this Titan's name is the Attack Titan, and that just sounds so stupid.
I can kind of understand that, you know. I think it's fine. I don't care that much. What do you guys think the other Titan names are?
And that's one of the things that, I don't know, it really pissed me off that I understood the fact that Kruger was like, oh, I have no time. I'm going to die pretty soon because I only have 13 years. Bitch, it's not like you're going to die within minutes. There's nobody else. You killed the soldiers.
He doesn't have time for that. He can't take that time. He's got time left this year.
Did you see how much he was, bleeding out and all that?
I don't care.
It seemed pretty damn imminent to me.
No,
he didn't say, I'm gonna die in 5 minutes. I can't explain all this.
If his 13 minutes, the identical 13 minutes, was up at that very moment, that is the biggest bullshit thing past Mind Wipes, past anything ever in any series ever. If the exact moment your 13 years was up was literally the exact moment where you couldn't explain anything else, that is the biggest ex machina bullshit that I've ever seen in my entire life, and I'm not buying it for 1 second.
Well, I think of it more as after 13 years, or 12 and a half years, he got a cancer, and it's rapidly advancing to the point where he only has a week left.
So hey, wait a minute. Hold on, wait. If Kruger knew this was going to happen and he planned on passing this off to somebody, why didn't he prep ahead of time to have a book or something where he could have explained all this shit into the person? If he was so concerned about not having enough time to explain this to somebody.
I don't know why you're even bringing up this time right now anyways.
Well, because if he's acting like he didn't have enough time to explain all the bullshit that we want to know about.
He did explain it off screen.
No, he didn't. He probably didn't explain the 9 different Titans. He probably didn't explain, because if he did, then why wouldn't Grisha keep it in his book? He didn't keep any of, as far as we know.
It probably is written in the book, but we didn't see it because it's the end of the chapter.
Well, then you'll be right if they explain all of this nonsense, which... Okay, so then if they explain all the secrets of the entire fucking story next chapter, then you're right, Zach. If not, then...
You know how much Isayama knows his flashbacks. It's going to be coming to us bit by bit from now on. This was in the memories. This was in the memories. This was in the book.
You shouldn't joke like that because we just had Chapter 86. We know he's willing to do that.
I would be so beyond happiness if he explained all of our woes and ills in this world
in a single chapter.
This one chapter coming up, that would be great. That would just be amazing.
That's kind of what Chapter 86 was, and I kind of appreciate it on that level. That we
just
got 3 chapters of that. Don't go begging for more already.
I'm not begging for more.
You're gonna jinx this is what you're gonna do.
I'm just saying, if you're going off of logic, which I know Attack on Titan doesn't always go off of...
Magic!
If this dude had all this time, because he already killed all the soldiers, and, hey, I might die in a week, but that's clearly enough time to talk with you for a couple hours about all of this shit you need to know. And he even said, and I'm going to take back what I just said, because he even says in this chapter, oh, there's stuff I can't explain to you because there's not enough time. He literally says that. So it's like, there's clearly enough time, bitch. There's no one around. There's no enemies around. There's no steamboats of soldiers coming along that you can't take care of.
And like I said, why hadn't he planned it, wrote a note or something that would have explained the shit that he could have explained that he was worried about time for? Because like you said, he literally said, the exact quote is that he didn't have enough fucking time to explain all the shit that he needed to explain. Like, how do you not think ahead for shit like that? It's beyond me. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
That was probably the longest awkward silence in the history of our podcast.
No,
I was waiting
not even
Zach
close.
to...
Not even close.
I agree with Scylla, number one, and number two, I was waiting for you, Zach, to chime in with some defense, but I think...
I'm just trying to wonder where this even came from. Like, we weren't talking about the time at all, and then suddenly you're just ranting about it.
Well, Scotty had a good point that this idea of him not being able to explain all the details that need to be explained to Grisha for him to be able to do his fucking job properly is something that he could have avoided entirely. And that this...
How?
Like I said, he could have written all this shit out ahead of time knowing that he was going to pass it off to somebody.
Maybe he did. There were multiple books in that drawer.
But he said at the time that he could not explain everything that needed to be explained.
It may have been stuff that would have actually taken like months to explain.
No, there's no way.
It's like explaining quantum physics.
Even if he was in his 13th year, he still might have had that much time. We don't know how much time he had left.
There's no amount. Okay, so the basic tenets of what you need to know are the various 9 Titans, their abilities, whatever. Like, even if you had to ring off 5 pieces of key information, that's not going to take more than 5 hours per point.
And I'm saying we don't know that he didn't tell Grisha that.
Okay, but Zach, then that goes into the point of if he did do that, and if Grisha then wrote it in those notebooks that are in the drawer that they found, the 104 squad, then that's going to literally just solve pretty much all their problems, because they're going to know everything they need to know now. And if they do, that'll be amazing. The series may be over within a couple of months if that's the case, if they just have all the information that's got to enact their plan. But you can
have all the information if you want. If you don't have a way to act on it, then you're still screwed.
Yeah, but the way to act on it's not going to get resolved anytime soon. Like, all the pieces are in place. Once they find out that there's a different mainland and they know what their purpose is, I mean, what more can happen?
Let me put it like this, Scotty. They know the way to solve the problem of a Titan attacking a city is to take out its name. Good fucking luck getting there. Even if they have the knowledge, they still need to be able to make use of that knowledge somehow.
I'm not seeing the relevance to the question that's being asked.
Which is
the question about the time and the importance of him not having enough time.
Maybe his plans got delayed. Maybe he just couldn't get things done in time. I doubt he was the one to be able to schedule when these prisoners were executed instead of having it a week earlier.
Well, even if that's the case, he had planned.
He's part of a bureaucracy.
He had planned to pass this off to somebody for a long time. All that time he spent feeding information to the Elodian rebels. All the time that he had spent working with them, he didn't think, hey, maybe I should write some of this shit down so I don't either forget it or I don't get the chance to explain it to him so that my bases
And once again, I'm saying maybe he did. There were multiple books in that basement.
Well, those were said to be Grisha's books, first off. We don't know if Grisha had written down any of the shit that Kruger didn't get to explain, but the fact
Maybe one of those books is all written in herring, because Kruger's the one that wrote it, and we haven't decoded it yet.
Well, maybe the moon's gonna crash into the island and blow the fucking thing up in the next chapter.
Stiller, it is already an established plot point in this series that there is another language that cannot be read. We can now reasonably assume that is the language used outside the walls.
Well, we can also...
Therefore, it would not be a stretch to say that Kruger had written down all this shit, but it's in a book that they can't read until they get to, like, the deciphering key at the end of Grisha's book or something.
It's also not a stretch to say that maybe Annie's gonna wake up in the next chapter and then come out and just fucking kill everybody because she wants to. There's a fucking piece of dialogue from Kruger at the end of this chapter saying, I don't have enough time to explain the shit that you don't need to know.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say, Zach, but I don't think I was getting my point across to you, is the sense that although it's possible, it's within the realm of possibility, what we received in this chapter, the information, he literally said I don't have enough time. So then, why on earth then would he say, without in the context of this chapter, off camera, so to speak, he says, but I have this handy-dandy book in my back pocket.
Why wouldn't they tell us? Right, if he said, I don't have enough time, if he had something prepared, why wouldn't he have said, I can't tell you because I don't have enough time, but if you read this, it'll explain everything.
that would be awfully convenient for them to purposely leave that out
How
in this
big is that
chapter.
speech bubble? How big is that fucking speech bubble? Let me see this.
Are you going to see how big it would be for them to say that?
Exactly.
And it could be split. It could be split into 2 speech bubbles, mind you. So, I mean, a side by side.
I gotta see how big the speech bubble is.
Zach, that's all we're saying, though, is that it doesn't make any sense for that to be a plot point that happens. Although it's possible, it makes no sense.
I'd say about 75% of that panel is taken up by Kruger standing over Grisha, and the rest of it's just straight up speech bubbles. There's definitely room there that he could have added another line or two. There's a fucking gap between the word yet and the bottom of that speech bubble you could have filled with another sentence. I blame the typesetter for making it that big.
Well, anyway, it doesn't seem like a response to what we're saying, Zach, so do you just want to move on, or...?
I think we need to move on. As much fun as that was, and I'm really glad we got to go into all those cans of worms and the different plot devices introduced in this chapter, which was so much fun. Now we're ready to move into the questions that we've built up for all 3 chapters, 86, 87, and 88. And that might sound like a lot, but there actually wasn't.
Because it is.
Well, there wasn't that many questions. There wasn't a huge amount of questions, but we got a few.
There really was.
We got a few, so we're gonna tackle these questions, and that'll be into the podcast. So, Scotty, I want to ask you a question.
Shoot.
If somebody wanted to submit a question to us to read...
Oh, fucking...
Don't. You ask him. Ask Zach about this.
Zach, if somebody wanted to submit a question for us to read and answer on the podcast, where would they send that question?
Their ass.
Scotty, this is why I didn't ask Zach. Because I knew he was going to...
You go to the subreddit, you look at the right side of the page, you see where it says, ask a question to the podcast, or some similar stuff. I don't fucking know. I don't read my subreddit.
Close enough.
You click the button, and you fill out the form. And if you feel like being extra special, you can send an email to snkpodcast@gmail.com. And we will never read it.
What was that email address?
snkpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
For those who couldn't hear that, it's snkpodcast@gmail.com.
Ah!
I know it was quiet with saying that. So.
You said it was what, Scotty? What was it?
It was very quiet, so just for those people who couldn't hear it the first time.
Oh, right. Well, what did you say it was?
It's snkpodcast@gmail.com. There we go.
I don't think you guys know how much I love that bit, that gimmick. I love that so much. That's my favorite. That's my absolute favorite.
It somehow?
I always do it that way because I love it that much.
Just because how pissed we get at it.
I love the hell out of it.
Oh, any comedy bit at our expense is fair game for Stiller. That's almost preferred, honestly.
Our suffering makes the podcast 10 times better every time.
Shouted for you.
Every time. Podcast masochism is the best. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
I am kinky as fuck.
Okay, so
that's ridiculous there.
Let's get into it. First question is, it looks like Eren can only use the coordinate when he's touching a Fritz descendant, quotes, Historia or the Smiling Titan. And then the question is the ship Eren Historia confirmed? We're opening with a shipping question.
Oh, so he's saying he'd have to touch him. I don't know, whatever.
Is it confirmed that Eren...
It's a sexual...
Is it confirmed for Eren and Historia hooking up now because contact? No? Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a ship, but we're going to see them hanging out together a lot more now.
Yeah,
maybe.
I agree with Zach. I don't think that necessarily confirms a ship, but that does just mean more interaction.
She already has a girlfriend who she is very devoted to. I mean, never mind. We have the letter.
Yeah, you know what?
So she might not have a girlfriend.
Do we even want to address that at all, or we just want to just let that be answered sometime?
I would rather not be ripped apart by Yumikuri shippers.
Okay, we'll move on then. So the next question is, it seems like everyone thought Attack on Titan took place in Germany, North America, or another world? Continent.
I mean, it's pretty clear it's taking place in Germany.
Yeah, it's pretty clear it's taking place on Neptune.
No, it's I mean,
What's the question
it
is?
may not be taking place on geographic Germany, but it's German in the heart.
The question is, what is your reaction to it being on upside down Madagascar?
Why the fuck would he even bother turning it upside down? Just put it in normal Africa.
What was the argument you and Ryan had last episode about the landmass and it not actually fitting on Madagascar?
Yeah, that.
Who did that get resolved? Does it actually fit or not?
I'm pretty sure the walls are still too big to be on Madagascar.
All right. So,
let me check. I'll double check again.
I don't know if there's any significance to it being on Madagascar. It could have been any island, I guess, if he wanted it to just be an island. I don't really see the significance of Madagascar.
Might as well put it on Greenland then.
It could have been Iceland too. Fuck it, why not?
Iceland's smaller than Madagascar. Are you kidding me?
Well, the fuck, why not put it on Japan? Why not? We're just going for islands. Don't care about how actually big the shit is. You know? Maybe he was avoiding a political conflict there because they would have been coming from China or Korea or from somewhere like that.
I don't think he's avoiding jack shit.
Well,
Let's be honest. There we go. There's the map.
Depending on how much
Alright, I got the map back up. I'm going to drag the walls onto Madagascar, and they are way too big.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's irrelevant.
Yeah, that's what it was. The widest point of Madagascar barely holds Walsina, let alone Maria and Rose.
Nah.
So I agree with Scotty. I really don't see any relevance to it being on Madagascar as opposed to anywhere else.
No, not really.
I mean, I guess the point with that being was people were asking about the races and why there weren't more black people or Asians.
Because they're all dead.
What?
I mean,
that's just well. Here's the thing. I mean, you have to think that Asians clearly exist within the context of the story.
Yeah, like two.
No, but they obviously came from somewhere. So the point is that the race itself existed. So is it a matter of they went extinct or they're simply at a different geographical location? Either way, I think it's irrelevant.
I don't think it being on Madagascar answers that fucking question.
No, right, but I'm
it
saying
makes the question worse.
Yeah.
Well,
they were probably genocided out of existence. Let's be honest.
Oh.
Well, you could simply say that wherever the geographical location is of both the mainland and of the island, there aren't other. The indigenous populations are just white, and that would explain why you don't see other races there. I mean, that's just that. Is there anything deeper I'm missing? Like, what's the?
No, that's it. That's the question. That's what we got.
Well, I think that holds still. I don't know how that changes at all with anything we've learned.
Yeah, I think that's fine for that question. We can move on. So the next question is, what did we think about Historia being Ymir's descendant?
I think it is not confirmed that the two Ymirs are the same thing. Therefore, it's not necessarily incest. It's just normal Munchkin sodomy.
Was that the person's name? Was that the question?
That was the person's name, yes.
Yeah, I thought that's what that was.
And a reference to the original abridged episode of Attack on Titan.
So, I mean, this question is based on the idea that Ymir inherited the spirit or the ghost or whatever you want to call it, the passing on of the Ymir willpower
of ye olden days,
of ye old Ymir. That the current Ymir that Historia has a very close relationship with.
They fucking
is affected in some way by Ymir actually kind of sort of
being Ymir.
Not being well. I mean, that doesn't.
The implication is she's banging her great grandmother.
The ghost is the ancestor, not the character.
There are still people that think that our Ymir and the story Ymir are one and the same. To which there is some merit to that argument. He obviously chose the same name for some important reason. But since it's not confirmed yet, we can't go all, oh my god, incest yet.
Actually, I think there's, sorry to cut you off, so I think there's a little more credence to that than I originally gave credit for, because if you think, how does Ymir, the one we have currently, live past the 13-year mark, as it was stated she was out for like 80 years? We already know.
She was a mindless titan for that whole time.
It does. I guess you're right.
A mindless
Never mind.
doesn't inherit the shifter.
You're right. Okay, never mind then.
Shut down.
I'm not gonna call it shifter 8s. I'm gonna call it the.
You almost did.
I almost did. I'm gonna call it the Ymir disease.
Ymir's curse.
Ymir's curse is better than the Ymir's disease, so I'm gonna go with Ymir's curse.
It's almost like that's the in-universe name or something.
It's almost like that. It's crazy how that works out. But
I'm gonna be even more concise and just call it the curse and not even Ymir's, because there's no other curses we know of. So I think it's pretty clear for us if we just call it the curse.
It's my problem because I don't associate
Mhm.
curses with death. I just associate them with like bad luck, you know.
I see.
And turning into a witch.
That or
Especially if you're a...
yeah,
That's not in the story though.
something like or
Yeah,
turning
well,
into
I can reference Madoka if I damn well want to.
or turning into a wizard if you reach a certain age.
That's not a curse, that's a blessing. Well, I mean, it's a curse in one way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
Not a problem I have.
I think to answer this question, I think it depends on what's in the letter, and how Historia would react to seeing Ymir again after all that she's learned from these past 3 chapters, and what the plan's going to be moving forward, and what her reaction is. I think a lot depends on that. And,
That's the other thing that we're waiting on, is this fucking letter. It's been, what, 6 months now?
It's been a while. It's been quite a while. I know.
Chekhov's gun is starting to rust, Harry Sayama.
I know Ben's on pins and needles, or at least he was. He's probably tired. He's probably tired of waiting by now. But I think it depends a lot on that.
Himself to death.
Once we have the answer to that question, and just to see what Historia's reaction is going to be, what she's going to want to do with Ymir moving forward, once we have that information, we'll be able to answer this question. But I'm not totally clear on whether Ymir is possessed by the Ymir ghost or whether the Ymir ghost is just in her. You know, I don't really know. It's kind of confusing. So I'm gonna leave my answer at that because I can't really answer it. You know.
That might explain why Ymir's absent from the story currently. Maybe she was too much of a resource or too important for Zeke and his comrades to be like, just you do you, Ymir. Maybe it's like, no, you actually have great importance to us as the sole inheritor of Ymir's spirit, so we need you just for whatever plot device you might serve in the future.
You remember Reiner and Berthold said that they were going to kill her and that she was most likely going to die when she got back to Zeke? Why do you think Zeke wanted to kill her?
Maybe because she has the ability to, if she inherits the coordinate, have more ultimate power than other people. I don't know. Maybe she could be a potential threat.
They want to kill Ymir because she stole one of the precious powers of the Titans from the Marley and put it in the hands of an unknown entity.
Put it in the hands of a baby?
Not the hands of an unknown entity. An Eldian who was turned into a mindless Titan for her crimes.
Oh, you're saying they wanted to feed her to somebody?
Yeah, they wanted to get control of that Titan again on someone who was on their side, not an unknown quantity.
I think that raises more questions about where Ymir came from.
Well, she literally said that...
And her origin.
That they were going to punish her for stealing the power of the Titans.
Yeah. Well, why...
It doesn't matter what her origin is. They don't know who she is.
Why did she do it to begin with? Is she an enemy of Zeke and them? And why? You know?
She said she went with them to protect Historia.
I think...
Why does Zeke hate Ymir? I understand that she ate Marcel, but I mean, this is a shifter you might be able to bring onto your team. Why bring her back to kill her?
Because it's way, way, way easier to say you're an unknown quantity who's got ties with the enemy because you love Historia. So instead of making this huge variable up in the air,
enemy though. They're not
what?
real. They're not real. They don't. Zeke didn't consider the Wall people really even a threat as much as an enemy. You know.
No,
they were just
he absolutely considers them an enemy.
They were just annoying and kind of in the way until way later in the story, right?
But regardless of their threat level, he absolutely saw them as an enemy. He wanted to destroy them because even the way he talked about them as like vermin, like below him. I mean, clearly he wouldn't want his coordinate power to be in the hands of the people he's trying to destroy or have ties to those people.
You know, I find it hard to believe that Zeke is dumb enough to not realize the situation that the wall people were in and why he looks down on them because of that, because he should know better. He should know that it's not them that chose to not do anything about their situation that they don't know anything about.
Still, if you have, let's say, a weapon, that's what this is, a weapon that is controlled by one of your subordinates, that is then captured by someone just completely random. You don't know who they are, you don't know what they want, but they have that weapon. You want that back in your control as soon as you can, so as to eliminate the wild card on the field.
Well,
and that's what Ymir was. She was a wild card.
Instead of just killing her outright, when they brought her back, they should have at least tried to talk to her. You know?
Maybe they did.
What happened in
But remember, she was a mindless Titan on Paradise Island, and if she's a mindless Titan on Paradise Island, that means she was an Eldian who was turned into a Titan by the Marley for her crime.
Was Ymir in the Rebel Resistance movement?
Maybe. She was turned into a Titan 60 years before present. The walls were built 80 to 100 years.
Do we have any kind of time?
No, it was 100 years.
Do we have any kind of
104.
Timeline on when Grisha and his shit was going on in the mainland?
20 years ago?
20.
35 years ago.
So we're saying 40 almost years before Grisha and all that shit happened. She was dropped off on the island and turned into a shifter.
No, into a mindless.
Into a mindless, that's what I meant.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think this entire series of events gives even more credence to what I was thinking in the first place, which was Ymir absolutely has no ties to previous Ymir, which is the fact that so she was just a random Eldian, if we're going off of this theory, which makes the most sense, before she was turned into a Titan, the same way that Marleys did this to everybody, all the disobedient Eldians. So then, someone who was in the Eldian mainland, they were just like, oh, we're going to name our daughter Ymir, after our goddess.
That's what I was thinking about. We talked about this before. It's like being a secret Christian in the middle of, like, the most conservative part of Saudi Arabia and naming your son Jesus.
To Scotty's point, I think that the fact that I don't know why I never put that together, that her being named Ymir, it's not like that was passed through the ghost power shit too. It's that her parents named her that.
Well, we talked about this last time.
Yeah, her being named Ymir, I think, kind of points, alongside the evidence that she was Eldian from the mainland, like you had said, Zach. I think those two things combined points to her not having the power of Ymir. Original? Yeah, exactly.
I think the purpose, because it does seem like that was a calculated measure for Isayama to call that character Ymir. I think his purpose behind that was to foreshadow future events of this character of Ymir playing a similar role as the historical figure Ymir. So perhaps...
What if she's a royal?
What do you mean?
In what way?
Royal blood.
Is she from the Eldians that are on the mainland royal? Or
one of the mainland hidden royals.
Well, that would tie into what I was saying, which is she could play a similar role as the past Ymir. If she was a royal who inherited the coordinate, then she would essentially be the past Ymir.
The coordinate stayed with the walls, and she was turned into a Titan like 20 years after the walls.
I know all that. I'm saying in the future, if she were to inherit the coordinate, then she would essentially be the past Ymir minus the immortality versus 13-year fiasco. So Isayama naming her Ymir could have been foreshadowing to the event that she will eventually get the coordinate and then fulfill the role that Ymir once had.
Do you think this series will end with our Ymir eating all of the other shifters?
Not all of the other shifters, just the
in order to get the godly powers of the original Ymir, she would have to reunite all nine.
Okay, well, I didn't mean literally become Ymir. I meant I just meant like in spirit.
Scotty, Ymir?
That presumes that she's not already dead.
Is Ymir gonna link the fire?
That's what exactly. There we go. I love that Dark Souls reference. I love it. Kudos, points to you, Stiller.
I can't take credit for that. I heard someone else say that joke. I stole that joke. I have to admit.
It doesn't matter. I don't care. You know that famous meme on Reddit. You made this.
You made this. I made this. I made this.
You made that, Stiller. That's your joke. You do you.
It's mine. Exactly. I made this. It's my reference. Oh, I was gonna ask. Do we know if the person holding the progenitor Titan power is still affected by the 13-year curse?
No, we don't have any way of knowing.
Well,
no, yes, actually, we know that they specifically are affected by the curse.
Okay.
Because the Rice
right.
had to pass it down every 13 years.
All right, okay.
Right.
Wanted to make
also,
sure.
Grisha had to pass it down as well.
I figured that was an important detail to have figured out.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question is, do you think the wall setting will receive any more world building from this point on? If not, are you satisfied with the amount of world building that went into it? That's a good question.
We're going to learn about the other foreign nations, I'm sure.
That is a good question. Surely there are things about the wall setting that, as time went on after it was originally settled that we would like to know. Like about the wall cult and about...
We still need to know what's up with them.
I mean,
how they knew about the Titans inside the walls.
Maybe I'm just a dumb nerd, but I'm kind of interested in the plan layout for, what class of civilian, the poor people live here, the rich people live here, how that was organized, and what's the government I want to learn more about the government structure outside. I mean,
it's pretty obvious still. The richer you are, the farther inside you get.
Well, I mean, there are still some details history-wise that I'd be interested in knowing. I don't think they're important to the story, but I'd be interested in knowing them.
The Fritz went to the center. The other noble families got closer to the center, and then they were dispersed farther out the less important you were.
So what about the underground? I'm sure there are more details about the underground that
it was a planned expansion that they intended to evacuate into and have people live in, but then they realized, oh shit, we fucked up, people can't live down here, and they just kicked all their homeless down there, basically.
And what was the reason?
That's not me spitballing. That's pretty much what is given in the story and in
what was the reason? What was the reason they couldn't live down there?
It gave them some kind of crippling disease.
You can't live without the sun. Your legs go bad.
Pussies.
What's fucking
vitamin D deficiency is a real thing.
But
you're a coward if you get that.
But what does that have to do with the sun, though?
What?
Wait, what?
Well, you said they couldn't. The reason they got that disease was because they weren't in contact with the sun.
Right.
They're not Superman and they're not Birdman. So why
you need
vitamin D?
You need vitamin D from the sun, though.
But they don't have Sunny D or some shit. They didn't invent some.
No, they don't have Sunny D. Do you actually think Sunny D is literally made of sunlight?
Not specifically Sunny
it's
D.
It's shitty orange juice, Stiller. That's all it is.
Not specifically Sunny D, and I also don't care about the orange juice. What I'm saying is, why the fuck haven't they invented vitamins?
I don't know, Stiller. Maybe because this is the 1800s level technology.
Did they have vitamins in the 1800s? I don't fucking know.
I'm pretty sure they were just starting to figure out scurvy.
I mean, if they can invent 3D maneuver gear, and you've got these thousands of people who are dying and crawling in some fucking underground tunnels because they can't walk because they can't get any fucking
Well, that's
to
the
sunlight.
reason they didn't fit. They abandoned the underground tunnel plan. They're like, oh shit. We can't do this. It would take a massive investment of resources.
They did not abandon it though because they didn't. No, they didn't.
Wait.
They did not abandon the underground though because they had markets going down there and they were making money off of those fucks.
No, the people that were down there set up their own markets, and then the noblemen up above were like, oh shit, we can profit off it. The American economy in a nutshell.
They had to get permits to be able to go up to the mainland surface, and they were people specifically paying money to get those.
Only stairways were on property owned by the noblemen.
And they were making money off of that, yeah.
Alright, come on, what are we talking about?
Stiller, let's not pretend that companies don't profit off the slums and the black markets all the time.
The whole reason I'm saying that is because if they're making money off of these fucks down there in the underground trying to make it out, wouldn't it be in their best interest to give them the ability to live?
No.
No, if they all fucking
Keep
die,
them
then they're gonna
starving.
lose their money.
So they keep trying to get your bone, right?
They're losing profit by letting all these people die.
Well, there's a but if you let them live, then they have no incentive to escape. There's a reason you always have a pact to say.
The incentive to
talk
escape is so they can get sunlight.
To anyone who's listening right now, who's literally checked out completely of this conversation, I'm right there with you. I lost whatever they were saying 20 minutes ago. It serves no purpose for anything at all, ever.
The incentive to leave the underground is so they can get sunlight. So
To live!
Yes!
So if they had the vitamins, that fucking incentive wouldn't work. They'd just
No.
be, oh, life is good, we're chill underground.
You sell the vitamins and you make a profit off it. And
Right, and then if you do that,
there
then
are
you have
gonna
no
be
If you sell the vitamins, you undercut the tea market, and you can't possibly do that. That's the main source of their income.
There are gonna be
Black
people.
tea is the key to it all.
There are gonna be people
Actually,
who
Scotty, I'm pretty sure it's yeast.
outside of the vitamins, people are gonna want to leave the underground just because they don't like the fucking setting. It doesn't look as nice as they would like it to.
The only
You
thing-
wouldn't know what the above ground looks like if you've never been up there.
If you know it exists, you want to see it though.
Are you arguing for the fact that it should be then, Stiller? That they should go up above ground? I thought you were on the side
That
of they should.
they should want to go above ground, and the
He thinks
government
they should want to go above, and that the noblemen should profit off of it.
and the government.
You're a
No,
typical
no.
American corporatist, Stiller.
The
That's all this
What I'm
boils down to.
saying is because the government is making money off of it, they should also be supplying some fucking vitamin D so these fuckers can live.
No, they're more likely to. It's
Because if they don't live, they
it's
can't
like
make
when
money off
it's
of
like
them.
when Nestle. It's like when Nestle sold that tainted baby formula they sold baby formula to starving mothers in Africa so that they could feed their kids, right? And then, after they've been on it long enough, the mothers can no longer produce milk, so they're forced to keep on paying up Nestle's prices.
Exactly.
You get them hooked on something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So Stiller's saying get them hooked on vitamin pills to make them right? Is that what you're trying to say, Stiller?
Yes.
Okay, I understand that.
I think we have the same basic plan here, which is profit. We're just arguing about two different ways to profit off homeless people starving in caves, Stiller.
And they can,
What the fuck are we talking about?
and there's no reason why they can't do both.
You only said one thing. What do you mean both? The profiting and what else?
And my idea.
They have to profit off of the vitamins, and they also have to profit off of people wanting to move to the main ground,
They
up
don't have
ground.
vitamins.
The only thing I pictured out of this entire thing, which is hilarious, is I want everyone to imagine a serious documentary about like the 1700s, right? It's like the Pilgrims first coming to America, and then randomly in the middle of the documentary, one of the main characters turns to is like, "Hold on, honey, did you take your vitamin pills today?"
Pilgrims come to America. They take the poorest pilgrims, throw them in a cave, and force them to buy vitamins if they want to escape.
Honey, when you're done with the cows, can you take your royal pills? Can you take your...
I'm glad we talked about this. I'm glad.
I think this is the best podcast we've ever done, and Ryan is really missing out.
like the Pilgrims...
Take your fucking vitamins, kids. Don't forget to drink your Ovaltine.
There's like... Their houses are made out of wood. Their houses are made out of wood. They have all of these, it's completely period specific. And then there's this one industrial factory in the corner. And they can fucking fight the roots.
The Marley are profiting off the Eldians by cornering the vitamin market early. This is why they never invaded to get the coordinates.
Okay, so
they didn't want to lose their vitamin profit.
To answer the question, yes, there are more details about the Wall Society that I would like to know.
Namely, where did they create their vitamin pills, and how can I get some?
And where did they come up with the formula for this?
You know,
is this what the special yeast was for that we found out about in the anime?
The whole reason that conversation started was because I used that as an example of something I would like to know.
No, you said you wanted to know more about like how people were distributed. I said the rich were in the center, the poor were outside.
And
they
I also wanted to know more
realized
about...
it wouldn't fucking work because of sunlight. They kicked the homeless down there. You said, why don't they just sell vitamins?
I also wanted to know more
why
about
don't they just, you know?
I also wanted to know more about the government structure outside of the military, and population and infrastructure basically is what I want to know more about. But not having that, if the story ends today, I'll be fine. I'm not gonna. If I don't get my fucking vitamins, it's gonna be a deal breaker for me, Stiller. I'm not gonna harp on not having those details if they don't give them to us. But there are things I would like to know, yes.
And that's always stuff that Isayama can go back afterwards and answer in interviews.
Absolutely. Like he has so far. Because people have asked him, like, oh, do showers exist? Do they shower? You know?
Yes. The Marley are Nazis. Showers exist.
Well, that was something that somebody asked him that he answered. That's an example of something, you know? Those kind of questions I want to know more about.
Oh, yeah, he said that they don't exist, didn't they?
That's right.
Yeah, so they all smell.
Right.
Huh. The Marley really are the good guys, giving cleanliness.
The next question, moving on from that, is: Do you think the series will end with the complete extermination of one or both factions?
No, I think they will both coexist. Maybe the destruction of the Marley's government, and then they'll just take their people and forgive them. Because I think what Isayama's setting up is that it's been a never-ending cycle between the Marleys oppress the Eldians get in power, they oppress the Marleys. That's what Gross was saying to Grisha. He was saying, what were you planning on doing when your uprising took over? You were going to oppress us. So Isayama was trying to harp on the fact that it's a never-ending cycle, and how you get out of the cycle is the people on top don't oppress the people on bottom, and then it's a union that's together instead of separate. So I think that will be the end result.
I agree that I don't think either group is going to be totally exterminated, because that kind of genocide I don't think is going to happen again in the story.
Also, I don't think it's acceptable in Japan, and he might go to jail for it.
Yeah, they're not going to kill each other because I think mostly because the ending has changed, and everyone dying I don't think is an option any longer. So somebody somewhere is going to survive. So the complete extermination is not possible. It's kind of a cop-out answer, but I think that, you know.
No, I think it's not a cop-out. I think that's like an appropriate answer.
Because we don't who the fuck are in the Mar that we know, you know? Still.
Yeah, I don't know.
No one? We haven't been introduced to any more characters?
So I don't think, like, it sounds weird to say that they're going to coexist at the end of the series, but I have to agree. You know, because I don't think this war is going to end with obliteration of the other.
I'll say they made it more difficult though, because when Isayama purposely made it so that he showed how even the general population is like disgusting and looked at the Eldians as inferior, like dogs, you know, or animals. Mm-hmm. That it's going to be. It's going to be difficult for the reader to be like, oh, okay, let's give these people acceptance now. But I think that's ultimately what this is going to be the end result.
Ideally. I mean, that's a very goody two-shoes kind of ending, but it's probable, I think. So the next question is, should Historia have her loyal supporter and campaign donor, Fligel Reeves, negotiate the greatest trade deal of all time to trade oil for technology and bring a peaceful end to the series? I really like this question, and I want to add to this list and say that he's also going to negotiate for vitamin D.
God fucking damn it!
And the tea as well. I mean, both are key aspects.
The tea is important, and the coffee is important. We have a very tough trade deal that needs to be negotiated here.
And I actually forgot about the coffee.
And I
forgot about the fact that coffee was plot relevant.
I can't think of anybody more appropriate to handle such a tough negotiating deal than our boy Fligel. I think he's the best. But to answer it seriously, I think this kind of ties into the last question, because once these two are starting to coexist, we actually need people like Flegel and people like the Merchant Association to help make sure that the economy is still stable. I mean, this is probably a joke question, but I seriously think that Flegel will be important to creating a peace between these two nations as far as the economy goes.
I think he will be. I'm not sure if it is going to actually be shown. It would be a good nod, and it would be awesome if ECM could tie that in and actually make that a relevant plot point that's seen. But regardless of whether or not that's in front of the scenes, I think it might go on behind the scenes, like implied, right?
Right.
So regardless, I think it'll play a role. So
next question: do you guys prefer a scientific or fantastic quote devil explanation for Titans?
I think we've covered this ad nauseum at this point.
If it isn't obvious which one we prefer, then I'll just say the answer is scientific.
Yep. We went over this in great detail.
Great detail. Next question.
The best detail.
The best detail you've ever seen. Everyone says it's perfect.
We have the best details, don't we, folks?
They said it's tremendous.
They're bigly fantastic.
Bigly tremendous.
Huge.
Bigly tremendously huge.
How come Zeke is the only warrior outside of RBA's age generation that we've seen so far? Could the prior warriors all be dead now because of training mishaps or having been killed while attempting missions of breaching the walls? Or do you think that as the plot goes more towards fighting the Mar, we'll get to see older generations of shifter warriors?
I think it has to do with the fact that Zeke's in charge, so perhaps he got more training, more knowledge, more education, and because of this he had to be older before he received the serum, because if they were going to make him someone who was going to be seen as a figure who was of authority amongst the shifters, then maybe being older would serve a purpose. So I think it could be a double-edged, well, not a double-edged sword, but it could be like, it could serve two purposes. Kill two birds with one stone. That's what I was going for.
I understand that this question is phrased based on the idea that we've seen shifters form groups and factions and team up for their objectives, but I don't think that new shifters or old shifters that are coming into the story are treating this like the Hunger Games and need to team up and form alliances and shit. Not everybody's going to have the same goals, as we've clearly seen between Grisha and Zeke and Annie. We've seen different shifters have different things that they want when they go to the walls to take back or to not take back or do whatever the fuck they're doing. So older generations especially are unclear about what their objectives are going to be. They could be trotting the Mar line and be doing exactly what the Mar want them to do, or they could come to the walls and just want to spend their 13 years there and just hang out and be a person, or who knows what the fuck they want to do. But I
think it's impossible for us to see any older generations of shifters, though. Because they only have 6 or 7. No, 6 now.
Well, isn't the implication that they're mindless Titans right now?
But that's not possible.
Well, I mean, older, and it depends on what you mean by older, I guess.
Past generations of warriors would have had the shifting abilities. Past generation means that they're no longer like active soldiers, which means their abilities have been passed down. The only way to do that is to be eaten. Therefore, they can't be alive anymore. So I don't think we're going to find any old soldiers. And no, they can't be turned into mindless Titans because they have to be eaten.
What if... No. Well, what if Mikasa's mom was a veteran?
What?
I mean, she was a shifter. And she shifted from alive to dead.
And she settled down with the Mikasa dad. And was like, hey, I don't want to do this.
To get that sweet, sweet Ackerman blood?
Exactly. She settled down with the Mikasa dad because, well, there's no way she would have fucking known that. But I
Hey, what's your last name? Ackerman. Okay.
Yeah, that was a stupid suggestion, but I kind of find that funny. I kind of want that to be a thing. Just because it's hilarious. But I guess I can't think of a reason why it's not true that there are no older generation shifters, so I guess that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys covered it. So I don't know if this is a dumb question. I'm saying that out loud, but I think I'm asking dumb questions. Is Mikasa...
We're getting to that point of the morning where everything we say is starting to turn gibberish.
That's true. Is Mikasa assuredly an Eldian? Do we know that?
She's half Ackerman and half...
She was born on the island, so she...
I would wager that she's part Eldian, like her dad had to crossbreed with an Eldian at some point in the line, maybe, possibly. I don't know.
Well, then how far...
Levi we can assume is Eldian. Mikasa, she's a wild card.
You think Mikasa's dad brought her from fucking, Vietnam?
Land? I mean, we don't know to what point the Ackermans stayed to themselves in their breeding practices.
Is she a pure blood, is what you're trying to say? She has no Eldian blood in her?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Possible. I mean, and that brings up another point, and this is probably getting into the too technical to even be considered by Isayama, but what percentage do you think it is before, like, the Eldian blood makes no... Like, even if you have 0.001% Eldian in you, is it like, close enough, you could be a Titan? Or is it like you have to have a certain percentage in you to be able to transform?
I'm sure even the smallest drop of Eldian blood in you activates the magic.
That's such bull. I hate this entire conversation. I already hate it. I regret it immediately.
That can't work though, because something like 90% of the world is descended from Charlemagne. No, it's all Europeans can trace their lineage back to Charlemagne, myself included. So, by that logic, eventually everyone in the world will have some Eldian in them.
Well, it more depends on their connection to Ymir than it does to.
You're right.
Eldian. We know.
Are you talking religiously or
like family tree wise?
Because it's only descendants of Ymir specifically that can become, but that's what an Eldian is.
It's true.
Literally, an Eldian is a descendant of Ymir.
It's true, but if you want to avoid all the crossbreeding with other nations and all that shit, you restrict it to looking at the Ymir tree.
But they can't do that. I mean, clearly that's not realistic to say that only Eldians. So
I think to help answer that question, you have to look at the family tree.
Doesn't really satisfy my question, but I think for the sake of time we should move on.
Yeah, because we still have a lot of questions left and we have not completed a lot of them.
Oh no.
If the two major competing races are the Mars and the Elodians, then where do the Oriental/Asians fit into this equation?
I think
this is
non-eugenically. Or back in the 50s. The two major competing races were the African Americans and the Caucasians. Where do the Asians fit in there? I mean, they're from a different part of the planet.
I think he's specifically referring to
the Ackerman.
Well, not even that, but like where do they play in terms of their role in the story? Will they see any development in terms of another nation will throw in their hat into the ring, so to speak?
I definitely think we're going to find out some more about these foreign nations. It was specifically mentioned that Kruger found help in their allies to the east, which I think was a reference to Asia. So, I don't know.
Is that allies to the Eldians?
Yes, allies to the Eldian restorationists.
Okay, so sneak attack ambush on the Mar mainland from the Asians, possibly. Or I don't think that's possible. I think we're getting a very exclusive and very locked down one-on-one fight between these two.
We're going full Metal Alchemist on this.
You don't think we're getting Pearl Harbor ×2? We're not getting that. We're not gonna get sneak attack.
Okay.
I had to throw that in there.
Little far there, even by my standards, but okay.
I have to be honest. That sounds like something Zach would say.
It does.
I was going with it. I don't know. It just felt right. I had to do it. I'm sorry.
My mind is saying
telling me no,
but my body is telling me yes.
Oh man, I need to take my vitamins. I'm not feeling well.
Make sure.
Are you getting the tremors in the knees, boy?
Make sure.
I need sunlight. Give me moonlight right now.
I want that skit right there to be a thing with the old timey.
I feel like after this, vitamins are going to become a meme on the sub. There's probably going to be some fan art or some shit.
Oh my god.
Like, it got to the point where I felt like I was forcing the joke a bit much, and then you keep bringing back up, so I know I'm in the right.
I thought it was a legit question.
It wasn't really. But it was funny, though.
Okay. Next question, because we need to move on. Where do the mindless titans come from? Why are there...
Well, when a mommy titan and a daddy titan love each other very much, they don't do anything because titans don't have sex organs.
Why are there...
Next question.
Why are there millions of them on the island? On the wall, the Attack on Titan island?
We already know this. Didn't we already go over
a
this?
shitload of Elodian criminals in Mare Society.
So the answer to this question is that the Mar created them and then sent them to the paradise, whatever you want to call it.
I call it paradise, although isn't the E supposed to be cut off? Paradise?
I have no idea.
There's paradise, there's paradis, and there's paradisi.
It's a translation.
I'm going to call it paradise, because paradise is a word. So.
But the other part of the question, I don't think there are actually millions. I think there's a lot, but probably not that many.
Well, I guess
there's
there is the question of where the initial mindless titans came from, because the first king, well, technically 145th king, but whatever, that king had to have seeded the island with some initial titans in order to give that fear factor of don't go outside the walls, right?
That's probably the real question, where it's what came first between the chicken and the egg. Where did the first mindless... Who the fuck came up with the serum to create a mindless titan in the first place? We don't really know.
And
right?
we don't even know what the serum is, really.
What's it made of?
It's titan spinal fluid.
It's made of.
What is a titan?
It's made of Sunny D.
Fucking hell. Fucking hell.
How do you get that much Titan's fluid? I don't know. It's
yeah.
one of those
Obviously a Titan spinal fluid farm. Duh.
Well, how did they figure out that they were going to make spinal fluid the thing that would be important to making Titans?
How did they find out that every time a shifter dies, it goes to a random baby?
Well, then that can be explained through a random baby will eventually grow up to have the power, and then they realize
how does the baby find out it has the power?
It bites itself and then turns into a Titan.
But it just biting yourself doesn't count though. You have to have the intention to turn into a Titan.
No, you don't. You have to have.
Aaron proved that with the spoon experiments.
No, false. What he proved with the spoon experiment was you have to have a goal. It doesn't have to be a goal to turn into a Titan. It just has to be a goal in general. It has nothing to do with being a Titan. You could have absolutely no knowledge of Titans, but if you have a goal in mind and you're hurt, then it will activate, regardless of your knowledge of being a Titan.
I think Zach's questions are much more important than the one I asked, but I still find it hilarious.
I just want the record to show that I was right and Zach was wrong there, so...
Congratulations. That makes it 1 you, 50 me.
That's not true.
I was getting ready to make a joke.
I had to explain the entirety of the past 3 chapters to all of you.
I had...
Not to me. Not to me.
I was getting ready to make the joke that I need to update the counter between you two, but then Scotty took the joke to the next level, so... Good.
I had to.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay. So next question is very generic one. What 2 characters would you like to see interact more and why? What would it add to their development and the overall story? And picking characters that are intrinsically linked, as in Ymir and Historia or Reiner and Berthold is cheating.
Reiner and
Berthold.
Reinhold and Berter.
There we go.
Isn't Berter the name of a Dragon Ball villain?
Fuck if I know. I've never seen Dragon Ball.
I think he is.
You're thinking of Beerus.
No. I'm thinking of Berter, like the blue Ginyu Force guy.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I typed in Berter and a Ginyu Force guy came up. So
see?
There we go. Good knowledge, still good knowledge.
Nailed it. Okay, so this is asking 2 characters who normally don't interact with each other a lot, and which 2 do you want to interact with each other more, and why do you want that as like a development cause?
You know, I really like the idea of having Rod Rice interact with Sergeant Major Gross.
Why is that, Zach?
Because they're 2 fucking characters that are about as far apart as I could find in the story.
And what would that add to their development and the plot of the story overall?
Shits and giggles!
Why don't you add Zachary into the mix over there?
Oh, hell yeah, Zachary, Gross, they're both into some pretty fucked up shit. One feeds his... One feeds inferior people to dogs for his son's education. The other hooks up inferior people to poop machines for his sexual education.
Oh, God, I feel so bad hearing that and knowing that some of that is true. It's like
How is some of it true?
I can't justify, you know.
How is only some of that true?
I can't justify
all true.
I can't justify giving a serious answer to that question, knowing that what Zach just said is kind of true.
It's not kind of true. It is true.
So, what my answer is going to be is that I wish that we would have gotten interaction between. This is just for my own personal reasons. I wish that we would have gotten interaction between Annie and Niall, because they didn't interact at all, and I think those two characters have a lot in common and would have had a really good interaction together. And the reason I want that is because of the character development possibilities for both characters, and how that might have created future parallels in the actions that both of them took.
What about Marlo and Niall then?
Yeah, that would be good too.
Because Marlo's like, I'm gonna take your job and fix everything.
That would have been fun to see, but knowing that Marlo is, well, yeah, I guess I should just say it would have been fun to see. That's fine. It would have been fun to see. I was gonna say it wouldn't have mattered as much considering how unimportant Marlo actually is, but it still would have been good to see.
It was baseball fodder.
Yeah, I would have been good. I would have appreciated the theme at least. Scotty, what about you?
I like to see the interaction between Marco and Hannes, because two halves make a whole, and that could really work out themselves, you know.
You know, I was expecting a Connie joke where it would be Connie and somebody else, but I think you took the high ground and answered that in the best way possible.
Connie in the bush.
So kudos to you, Scotty. That was good.
Thank you.
I was actually trying to think of a good Marco joke and a good Hannes joke, but I never really connected the dots. That was a good one.
Thank you.
And you realize you just created a joke too. That was pretty good. You never connected the two halves.
Unintentional jokes are the best.
So the next question is: so far we've gotten a lot of the deep lore through long expositional flashbacks. Parentheses, Rod in the cave and Aaron now. Do you think this is the best way to go about giving us this exposition, or is it corner cutting on Isayama's part?
Giving lore in caves is actually starting to become kind of a trope. Because it happened in Sword Art Online 2. It happened in Code Geass to an extent. It happened here. And it's getting kind of stupid and annoying.
Wait, what do you mean giving lore in a cave? How did that happen in the context of AO2?
In the Rod and the flashback in the cave
arc, where Rod was just giving exposition in the cave over several chapters. The same thing happened in Sword Art Online. In the second season, there's basically 3 episodes where no one leaves they're just hiding in a cave for 3 episodes. Talking about shit.
That sounds terrible. Why would you watch that?
Everyone hated it. And it happened in Code Geass after the battle at Narita with C2 and Lelouch in the cave. It's getting kind of a... You have no idea what I'm talking about, Scotty. Don't lie.
Nobody who's sane knows what you're talking about.
Hey,
nobody who has any
sense. Widely renowned as one of the best.
I'll agree with you on Code Geass, but I'm not going to agree with you on SAO. Whatever.
What are you disagreeing with on SAO? That it happened?
That's a good show.
Someone create me some fan art.
I didn't say it was a good show. In fact, I specifically said they gave exposition in a cave for 3 episodes and it was fucking moronic.
I want fan art of a goose with the Code Geass thing in his eye.
I will make that right now.
Somebody make that, please.
I've heard it pronounced Code Geass.
And I want you to make it, Stiller. I want you to make it the background of this episode, like from this point on or something.
Yeah, that's a reasonable request. I can do that.
From this point on, forever? Yeah, well, that's...
No, from this point of the episode onwards.
I won't make it for the rest of the video, just as long as I feel it's appropriate. So going back to the question, though, I think we kind of talked about how we think some of the new plot devices are definitely corner-cutting techniques. So, yeah, there is some corner-cutting going on, for sure, but I don't necessarily hate the entire expositional dump job that he's trying to pull here. I think there are definitely ways it could have been handled better, and like I said, there's definitely corner cutting going on, but it's not the absolute worst possible way he could have done this, you know. And then the next question that was submitted is the same person wanting to amend that question and say they wanted to emphasize the expositional part of it more rather than the flashback. As in, is it better more for the exposition's sake as opposed to doing more flashbacks? Still, I think the answer still applies.
Yeah.
So the next question is, do you think this is a good question. Do you think Annie gets to live bonus years for being frozen? I think the answer is no. I think the answer is no for sure, because that's not how curses work. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
no, it's not. Yeah. I mean, if maybe if it was cryogenic shit, then it might work.
If there were
science,
like
a biological timer, but
if there were science and logic to this, then it would be fine.
Yeah.
She would get those years, but because this is magic bullshit, she does not.
But how much time has passed in the story since then?
About 6 months.
A couple months.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, 6 months. So it's not even that big a deal in the grand scheme of things.
Nobody else find that outrageous, by the way? I know I bring this up every couple of podcasts, but the fucking timeline on this and how it's all happening within like a couple of months, I think is outrageous.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, it's not outrageous, like, logically, because it makes sense, like, when you think about what's happened, like, multiple chapters span potentially a day. So to think that the entirety of, like 50, 60, 80, whatever, 70 chapters, that it goes, 6 months, I think that makes somewhat sense.
I'm thinking the reason that the reason it shouldn't take longer is because he has a fucking 13-year timeline that he has to stick to, and he can't break that. Because otherwise, I think he might have actually expanded that.
True.
Because I'm thinking specifically about like Aaron's time skips when he's training with his Titan ability to learn how to harden and all that kind of shit. I feel like that should have actually taken longer than it did.
Yeah, probably.
But because he created this fucking time limit for himself, it's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
It's his own fault, but whatever. Next question. So, since Aaron is gonna die, does Jean finally have a chance of waking up next to bedhead Mikasa?
No.
Nope, yeah.
She's still not attracted to him in any way, shape, or form.
Well, we haven't seen her really attracted to anyone besides Aaron, and even that's debatable whether that's attraction or...
She's Aaron sexual.
Do you believe that love can bloom on the battlefield?
I believe we should go on to the next question. That's what I believe.
Nobody appreciates more Metal Gear
Solid.
No,
I never played Metal Gear Solid.
Exactly. That's exactly.
I thought it was a Beatles song.
I could see how you might think that.
Is love.
Yeah.
I thought that too.
I could see how you might think that. That's. I'll give you credit for that. If Aaron and Armin live long enough that they reach the end of their lifespans, who should get the powers?
Anji.
Well, they mean between Aaron and Armin.
Oh. No, I think they meant who should inherit.
Yeah, well, should Armin eat Aaron or should Aaron eat Armin?
No, I don't think
No. After Aaron and Armin die, who should get it next?
No.
Because Aaron's going to die first anyways.
They said if they live long enough that they reach the end of their lifespans, not that they're dead.
No, that's the point.
Yeah, but Aaron's going to die first anyways.
Once Aaron reaches the 13-year mark, he has to let someone eat him. So who is going to eat him?
Well, why is Armin specified in the question if they didn't mean both of them?
He did. He said who's going to eat Aaron, and then who's going to eat Armin.
Well, I mean, if you're going to ask who's going to eat Aaron, then why the fuck would our answers be different for Armin?
Because the same person can't eat both.
Yeah, they can.
Well, they can, but why would they?
Why wouldn't they?
Because you can have
the reason they wouldn't
people,
still are the reason they wouldn't is to have two shifters. The reason they would is to have one super strong shifter.
But I think the benefits far outweigh the negatives for having two different shifters. So would you rather run two different missions?
So would you rather fight one human-sized Armin or
there we go.
One colossal-sized Aaron?
Exactly.
definitely humans. Wait, did you say human-sized Armin? That's just Armin. That's literally just Armin.
No. Human-sized Armin is a very large Armin. You have to forget it, or you have to remember, he's small. He's like Levi.
The joke I was going after was the would you rather fight like a regular horse or
No,
duck-sized horse?
Yes,
duck-sized
get
horse.
it.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
I get it. But you literally paired up a human versus
I
a
can't
Titan.
phrase anything correctly right now. Because it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I can't phrase anything.
A human-sized Armin. Well, that's a tough one. He's really strong.
And really short. That's what I'm saying. Human-sized Armin is like Armin at like 175% of his normal
So it should have
height.
been phrased one Aaron-sized Armin?
I don't know if that question was ever.
I don't know. Fuck it. I'm done.
With.
I'm done with it. Fuck it. Let's move on.
Okay, Stiller, I've completed my masterpiece.
Actually, we didn't answer the question at all, so we should probably do that.
1 second. I'm gonna put my masterpiece in chat here.
Well, who's available to eat these two?
I think that obviously you should give them at least. Aaron is 100% going to be eaten by a Rice or a Fritz for sure. So I guess Historia is going to eat Aaron to get the coordinate because then she can do whatever she wants. And as far as who eats Armin, that's just I guess whoever. I don't even see who would get the benefit from that.
No one gonna comment on my lovely work of art?
Let's see.
It's very nice. It's very nice.
Yeah, I agree with Scotty. I can't really answer that question. I don't really see that relevance to it. That's a good piece of work you did there, Zach. I'm glad you made.
Thank you.
I'm glad you made that.
I put the Gios on and I'm like, you know what? He could use the fucking hat.
Turns out that was the last question. So we're out of questions now. So that's the end of the podcast.
Wow, what a great... It almost seems like we've never signed off before.
A very blunt ending to the podcast. I think it's appropriate for this chapter in particular.
No, it is.
So, with that in mind, thank you for listening to the Chapter 88 edition of the podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Please remember to submit the questions if you have them, so we can make fun of you for submitting them. And then we will be back. We will be back in January, hopefully. And everybody will be here, hopefully. And until then, we will see you guys in the next edition of A Cast on Titan. Merry Christmas!
Bye-bye. Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas! Ooh. Do 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 do. Da 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 da.